As you can see from my designs, the Horizon Tower will redefine the Chicago skyline, Daniel Harrington announced to the boardroom, gesturing dramatically at the sleek architectural renderings projected on the wall. It's sustainable, iconic, and structurally revolutionary. I kept my expression perfectly neutral as I watched my boss present my work to the selection committee from the city's most prestigious development group. My innovative support structure designs, my environmental systems, my distinctive silhouette that harmonized with Chicago's architectural heritage while pushing it boldly forward, all presented as products of his brilliant mind. My name is Alina Chen, and this is the story of how my work on the biggest architectural project in Chicago became the catalyst for justice I never expected. The cantilevered observation deck is particularly inspired, remarked Sandra Reynolds, the head of the selection committee, tracing the graceful curve with her finger on the presentation materials. How did you solve the structural challenges? Daniel's confident smile flickered for just a moment. He glanced at me, seated quietly in the corner taking notes, then launched into a vague explanation about innovative support systems and proprietary stress distribution methods. I suppressed a smile. Those proprietary methods were documented in my personal notebooks with time-stamped digital backups going back 18 months. The same notebooks Daniel had once dismissed as too theoretical for practical application. "We'd like to see more detailed structural specifications," said Reynolds, her keen eyes narrowing slightly, "particularly for the foundation and core support systems." "Of course," Daniel replied smoothly. "My team can prepare those for our next meeting." My team. As if Harrington Architectural Group wasn't a one-man show with a supporting cast that received neither credit nor adequate compensation. As if I hadn't been working 80-hour weeks refining those structural specifications while Daniel attended cocktail parties and networked with potential clients. "Elena will compile everything," he added, nodding in my direction. "She's quite good with the technical details." The meeting concluded with handshakes and promises. The selection committee departed, leaving Daniel almost giddy with anticipated success. "The Horizon Tower is practically ours," he declared, loosening his Italian silk tie. "Elena, I need those structural specifications polished and ready by Thursday, and add some more green elements. They seem to care about that sustainability garbage." I nodded, gathering my notes. The entire support system is actually designed around sustainability principles. The core structural elements incorporate. He waved his hand dismissively. "Just make it look impressive. They don't understand the technical details anyway." But Sandra Reynolds did understand. What Daniel didn't know, what he had never bothered to find out, was that before becoming the most powerful developer in Chicago, Sandra Reynolds had been Dr. Reynolds' structural engineering professor at MIT. My professor. My mentor. The woman who had recognized my talent long before I joined Harrington Architectural Group. And she had definitely recognized my work today, though she'd given no indication beyond a slight raise of her eyebrow when Daniel struggled to explain my cantilever design. That evening, as I worked late in the office refining the structural specifications, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. *, when did you design the Horizon support system? The cantilevered elements are unmistakably yours. We should talk. SR*. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. 18 months of development. Everything in the presentation was my design. I have documentation. Coffee tomorrow. Her reply came immediately. Piero's, 7 a.m. Bring your documentation. I looked around the empty office at the walls displaying award-winning buildings, all credited to Daniel Harrington, all designed largely by junior architects who had eventually left in frustration. Many had abandoned architecture entirely after having their work systematically appropriated. I had stayed, meticulously documenting everything, building my case patiently. The Horizon Tower project was different, too significant, too innovative to surrender to someone else's ego. This wasn't just another building, it was a statement about the future of sustainable urban design. The next morning, I arrived at Piero's with a digital portfolio containing 18 months of work, initial sketches, mathematical calculations, progressive design refinements, structural simulations, and even rejected concepts that showed the evolution of the final design. Sandra was already waiting, elegant in a charcoal suit despite the early hour. "I suspected it was your work the moment I saw those cantilevers," she said after we'd ordered coffee. "You were exploring similar concepts in your graduate thesis." I nodded, pulling up my documentation on my tablet. Daniel has presented variations of this design at 3 different competitions and preliminary proposal meetings. Each time, he's taken full credit. Sandra reviewed my extensive records, her expression darkening. "This is comprehensive, and unfortunately, not surprising." Daniel Harrington has a reputation in the industry. "A reputation as a brilliant architect," I said bitterly. "As someone who surrounds himself with talent and then claims their work as his own," she corrected. "But he's never attempted it on a project of this scale." She set down her coffee cup decisively. "The Horizon Tower is a $500 million project that will define Chicago's skyline for generations. We need to be absolutely certain about who's truly capable of delivering it." "What are you suggesting?" I asked. "The selection committee is meeting next week for final technical reviews. Present your documentation, challenge his claim to the design." I shook my head. He'd just say I was working under his direction, executing his vision. That's always his defense. Sandra studied me thoughtfully. "What if we could prove definitively that the design concepts are yours, not his? What if we could force him to demonstrate his understanding of his own supposed design?" A plan began to take shape between us, one that would require precision timing and absolute confidence in my work. By the time we finished our coffee, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Over the next week, I prepared 2 sets of structural specifications. The first contained the actual correct engineering for the Horizon Tower, innovative, sound, and meticulously documented. The second contained subtle but critical modifications that would be immediately apparent to anyone who truly understood the design's underlying principles. The day before the selection committee meeting, I placed the modified specifications on Daniel's desk for final approval. As expected, he barely glanced at them before signing off, too busy selecting his outfit for the presentation to bother with technical details. "These look fine," he said, handing them back. "Just make sure all the sustainability buzzwords are prominent. That Reynolds woman seems fixated on green design." "Of course," I replied, keeping my expression neutral. "I've highlighted the innovative energy recapture system in the building's core." The next morning, the selection committee reconvened in Harrington Architectural Group's conference room. Daniel was resplendent in a custom suit, confident and charismatic as he began presenting his detailed specifications for the Horizon Tower. I waited until he reached the structural core explanation before quietly sliding my tablet to Sandra Reynolds, displaying side-by-side comparisons. My original work, time-stamped and documented, alongside Daniel's presentations where he claimed the same work as his own. Sandra reviewed it silently, then passed the tablet to the other committee members. Their expressions shifted subtly as they realized what they were seeing. "Mr. Harrington," Sandra interrupted Daniel mid-sentence, "could you explain more about the dynamic load balancing in the cantilevered observation deck? Specifically, how your design addresses torsional stress during high wind conditions?" Daniel faltered momentarily but recovered with his usual confidence. "Of course. The cantilevered sections utilize a proprietary system of counterweights and stress distribution channels." "Could you be more specific?" pressed Sandra. "Perhaps draw the primary support structure." Daniel's smile tightened as he moved to the whiteboard. With visible hesitation, he sketched a simplified version of the cantilever support, one that matched the modified, structurally unsound version I had given him yesterday. "That's interesting," Sandra said, "because according to these specifications you signed off on, that design would fail catastrophically in Chicago's wind conditions." The room fell silent. "There must be some mistake in the drawings," Daniel said, glancing at me accusingly. "No mistake," I said, standing up. "Those are exactly the specifications you approved yesterday. The actual functional design, the one I originally created, looks like this." I moved to the whiteboard and quickly sketched the true support structure, explaining the mathematical principles behind its stability as I drew. "This is ridiculous," Daniel sputtered. "Alana works under my direction. Any designs she produces are company property." "That's true," I acknowledge. "But the question isn't who owns the designs, it's who created them, who understands them, and who can actually deliver this project successfully. Sandra handed Daniel a complex structural problem related to the building's core. If this is your design, you should be able to solve this issue immediately. Daniel stared at the problem, his expression shifting from confidence to confusion to barely concealed panic. I don't have time for pop quizzes, he said finally. My credentials and portfolio speak for themselves. They certainly do, Sandra agreed. But I think we need to understand exactly who has been doing the speaking. She turned to me. Ms. Chen, would you care to solve this problem? I stepped forward and worked through the complex structural calculation methodically, explaining each step. When I finished, the committee members exchanged glances. I think we've seen enough, Sandra said. Mr. Harrington, the selection committee will need to reevaluate your firm's proposal in light of this. Clarification about design authorship. As the committee filed out, Daniel turned on me, his face contorted with rage. You're fired. Clear out your desk immediately. I don't think that would be wise, came Sandra's voice from the doorway. She had returned without the other committee members. Not when Ms. Chen is clearly the architectural mind behind the project we're considering for a $500 million contract. She handed me her card. Elena, the committee would like to see a revised proposal. One that accurately credits the design team. We can wait a few weeks if you need to make alternative arrangements. The implications were clear. The selection committee was still interested in the Horizon Tower, but not with Daniel Harrington at the helm. 3 weeks later, I sat in a different conference room in a different office. Chen's sustainable design had been incorporated in record time, backed by several investors who had been following my work for years, though they had believed it was Daniel's until recently. With me came 5 other architects from Harrington's firm, all with similar stories of appropriated work. Across the table sat the selection committee reviewing our revised proposal for the Horizon Tower. The design is even stronger now, Sandra remarked, studying the refined specifications. You've enhanced the sustainability elements considerably. Those were always part of my vision, I explained. But they were deemed too expensive and too experimental previously. By Harrington? Yes, he preferred more conventional approaches that would be easier to pitch. Sandra closed the proposal folder. The committee has made its decision. Chen's sustainable design will be awarded the contract for the Horizon Tower, subject to financial verification and insurance requirements. After the committee departed, my new team celebrated, still somewhat shocked by our sudden change in circumstances. As the champagne flowed, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Harrington Architectural Group files for bankruptcy. Multiple clients withdraw projects. I showed it to Maya, my former colleague and now partner. That was fast. Not surprising, she replied. Once clients realized he couldn't actually design the buildings he was pitching, everything fell apart. And apparently he's being sued by 3 former clients who suspect their buildings weren't properly engineered. Were they? Oh, we made sure they were sound, Maya assured me. We just never got credit for it. 6 months later, I stood at the groundbreaking ceremony for the Horizon Tower, hard hat in place, gold-plated shovel in hand. Cameras flashed as I turned the first soil on what would become Chicago's most innovative architectural landmark. The journey from that boardroom where I had quietly watched Daniel present my work to this moment had been extraordinary. Chen's sustainable design had grown to a team of 20, with a portfolio of pending projects focused on environmentally progressive urban solutions. Daniel Harrington had left Chicago. His reputation in tatters after multiple former employees had come forward with similar stories of appropriated work. His name had become cautionary tale in architectural circles. As I addressed the gathered crowd and press, I thought about all the other talented people whose work was being stolen by those with more power, more connections, or simply more audacity. My final words at the microphone weren't just about the building we were about to construct. The Horizon Tower represents more than sustainable design or architectural innovation. It represents the principle that true creativity deserves recognition, that excellence shouldn't be hidden, and that the future belongs to those who actually build it, not those who merely take credit for it. That evening, as I reviewed finalized construction plans in my office, a delivery arrived, a framed architectural blueprint of my graduate thesis project, the conceptual design that had eventually evolved into the Horizon Tower. With it was a note from Sandra. Asterisk, the best designs stand the test of time. The best designers ensure that truth does too. Chicago's skyline will be better for both. Asterisk. I hung the framed blueprint on my office wall, the first of many visible reminders that sometimes justice in professional life doesn't come from confrontation or accusation. Sometimes it comes from simply being so thoroughly prepared, so completely certain of your own work, that when the moment of truth arrives, all you need to do is calmly demonstrate your expertise, and watch as those who try to claim it stumble over the very details they should have understood. The Horizon Tower rose floor by floor over the next 2 years, its distinctive silhouette gradually becoming part of Chicago's iconic skyline. Each beam, each structural element, each sustainable system represented not just architectural innovation, but a testament to persistence, documentation, and the power of knowing your own worth. And on a small plaque in the completed building's magnificent lobby, beneath the name of Chen Sustainable Design, was the Latin phrase I had insisted on including, asterisk veritas in architectura asterisk, truth in architecture. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't about destroying someone else's career. It's about building your own legacy so undeniably, so excellently, that those who try to diminish you become footnotes in a story of success they couldn't steal.
Don't like taking care of her? Then leave. A parentless woman like you doesn't even has a home to return to.
My husband came home with his mother and said that to me, mockery lacing his words. My mother-in-law had been having trouble with her legs for a while and required care. I had been commuting to her house to take care of her, but her attitude toward me was absolutely terrible. She hurled insults at me and criticized everything I did, no matter how small. Even when I consulted my husband, he always took her side. Still, since I lost my parents at a young age, I wanted to cherish the mother figure I had gained, even if she was my mother-in-law. However, it was my mother-in-law herself who completely trampled on those feelings. Gradually, I started visiting her home less and less. Then one day, my husband brought her to our house and demanded that I either take care of her full-time or leave. My mother-in-law, Mary, emboldened by his words, joined in with a mocking laugh.
That's right. You don't have any parents, so there's nowhere for you to go back to, is there? Guess you'll just have to take good care of me from now on.
At that moment, something inside me snapped completely. The last shred of affection I had left shattered into pieces. I took a deep breath and calmly replied, "All right then, let's get divorced." Both of them looked at me in shock, but I continued, "And I'll be returning to my family home."
What? Your family home?
My husband muttered, dumbfounded, while my Mary sneered and spoke up.
Family home, as if you have one. What are you talking about?
But I calmly retorted, "I do. You just don't know about it. My name is Catherine. I'm 35 years old and work as a corporate employee. When I was a child, I lost my beloved parents in an accident. I was only 5 at the time, so my memories are a little hazy, but I clearly remember the peaceful afternoon sunlight streaming down without any warning of what was to come. That day, for some reason, it was my grandma who came to pick me up from preschool. She took my hand, and I started walking with her. My mom always picked me up from preschool, so even as a child, I found it strange that my grandma had come to get me that day. My grandparents' house wasn't too far from the preschool, but it wasn't especially close either.
Today, Grandma is picking me up.
I don't remember what kind of expression my grandma had when I said that so casually. She took me straight to the hospital, but that day, I wasn't able to see my parents. Because of the severity of the accident, they must have decided it was best not to let a young child like me see them. I had an older brother, Alex, who was 3 years older than me, but he was only 8 at the time. Just like me, he stood outside the hospital room, silently watching as our relatives rushed around in a panic. There were so many adults, yet my mom and dad weren't among them, and that made me feel a little uneasy. I learned later that my dad had taken a day off from work that day. He and my mom had gone out shopping together. On their way, their car was hit by a driver who had fallen asleep at the wheel, and they were rushed to the hospital immediately. Sitting on the hard hospital chair, Alex held my hand tightly. His face was pale, and I could see how hard he was clenching his teeth, trying not to cry. He must have already realized that something terrible had happened to our parents. I didn't know anything at the time, but being suddenly taken to the hospital and seeing my brother and all the adults acting so tense made me more and more anxious, to the point where I felt like crying.
What's going on? Aren't we going home?
I asked over and over, but Alex never answered. The only thing I clearly remember is how his hand, holding mine, was damp with sweat. After that, we were taken to our grandparents' house. It wasn't until a few days after we started living there that we were finally told the truth about our parents' deaths. Our grandpa sat Alex and me down in the old living room, took a deep breath, and spoke.
I have to tell you something painful, but from now on, Grandma and I will always be here for you.
I barely understood anything that followed.
You won't be able to see your mom and dad anymore.
The only words that stuck in my mind were, Alex didn't cry in front of everyone. Every time I looked like I was about to burst into tears, he squeezed my hand and kept repeating the same words.
It's gonna be okay.
But that night, after our grandparents had gone to bed, I heard him crying into his pillow in the bed next to mine, trying to stifle his sobs. My grandparents' house was an old European-style home. The hallway creaked with every step, and the room where my parents' photos were placed always carried the scent of candles. Everything about living there felt new, yet strangely unreal. Every morning, my grandma would brush my hair. She would fix the wrinkles in Alex's school uniform and repeatedly tell him,
I'm going to raise you into a fine man.
but she must have noticed that he was more concerned about me than himself.
You're still a child. You need to worry about yourself first.
She scolded him once, but Alex just shook his head and whispered.
I'm gonna protect Catherine.
From that day on, he wasn't only my brother, but also became my parent. Alex did everything he could to keep me from sinking into grief, just as he had promised. My grandparents were kind to me as well, but no one supported me and looked toward the future for me the way Alex did. Thanks to him and my grandparents, I was able to grow up without straying from the right path. After graduating high school, Alex carved his own path and started his own business. Watching him work hard, I learned the courage to face any hardship head-on, and my respect for him only grew stronger. When I graduated high school, Alex asked if I wanted to work at his company. I didn't hesitate to accept because I wanted to support him however I could. Since then, I've worked hard and have lived a busy yet fulfilling life. I never had much luck with relationships, but when I met Jack through our mutual friend, we hit it off immediately and quickly went from dating to marriage. It has now been 3 years since Jack and I got married, but we don't have children yet, so it's just the two of us living together. My work at Alex's company allows me to work from home without any issues. So I usually spend my days surrounded by my laptop and stacks of documents in my home office. Jack knows that I work from home doing administrative work, but he doesn't know that I work for Alex's company. He's so focused on his own job that he's never really shown much interest in what I do. Still, When we first got married, things were good between us. Back then, Jack wasn't as busy with work as he is now, so we had more time to spend together at home. However, as time went on, his workload increased, and he started leaving early in the morning and coming home late at night. That routine gradually created a quiet distance between us. And around that time, the things Jack started saying began to sting.
Must be nice, huh? Just sitting at home on your computer and still getting paid.
He said that one night as he walked in, completely exhausted. At first, I thought he was joking and laughed it off. But over time, it became a regular thing, and there was an unmistakable tone of disdain in his words.
Man, working from home must be the easiest gig ever. Must be nice getting paid for what's basically playtime.
I took pride in my work. I was involved in important projects and felt confident in the results I was achieving. But little by little, Jack's words started chipping away at that confidence. Don't call it playtime. I'm working hard from home. I couldn't hold back and finally spoke up. Jack scoffed and smirked.
Oh, please. Like you're actually working hard. Bet you're just doing some mindless. Anyone can do a job. Hell, even calling it a job is probably a stretch.
Every time I tried to argue, he would shut me down with an overwhelming barrage of words. Eventually, I just stopped fighting back. But that wasn't the only thing that was bothering me. There was also my mother-in-law, Mary. She lived alone in her house, just a 5-minute walk from ours. My father-in-law had passed away 5 years ago due to an illness. When I married Jack, I was actually excited to have a mother-in-law, even if she wasn't my biological mother. Since I lost my real mom when I was 5, I was genuinely happy to have a new family. But that hope was crushed almost immediately. From the very first time we met, Mary made it clear she despised me for stealing her beloved only son. Every time I saw her, I felt an unbearable heaviness in my heart. Lately, it seems Jack has been venting about me to her often, and whenever she visits, she never misses a chance to throw passive-aggressive jabs at me.
Work from home, such a convenient little phrase, isn't it? It's basically just an extension of being a housewife, isn't it? Jack works so hard out there, and all you do is sit at home and take it easy. And on top of that, no kids. Seriously, what do you even do all day?
Mary was a sharp-tongued woman, and since I never talked back, she took full advantage of it to hurt me with her blunt words. Her gaze always seemed to accuse me of failing my duties as a daughter-in-law and neglecting my role as a woman. She escalated further, starting to show up at our house uninvited when Jack was away for work, criticizing every little thing about how I handled the household chores. Having reached my limit, I finally spoke up. Mary, what you're doing is called harassment. Please stop. Looking back, I could have phrased it better, but at the time, I was under pressure with work deadlines and had little emotional bandwidth to spare. Since I had never talked back before, she looked dumbfounded for a moment, her face frozen in surprise. But she quickly turned red with anger and started yelling.
What kind of attitude is that toward your mother-in-law, you insolent woman?
She shouted, spitting as she spoke. Seeing Mary so agitated that it seemed like steam might come out of her head, I spoke to her. Mary, please calm down.
Ouch!
She suddenly cried out softly and clutched her right foot. What happened? Startled, I rushed over to her. She hadn't bumped her foot on anything and suddenly started complaining of pain. What could have happened?
I'm fine. I tripped at home recently, and sometimes my foot hurts because of it. I'm not feeling well, so I'm leaving for today.
She snapped angrily as she headed toward the door. Are you sure you're okay? Should I call a cab for you? I asked her.
Don't treat me like an old woman. My house is just a short walk from here. I don't need a cab.
She spat out those words and slammed the door shut. It's not about your age. I was just worried because your foot looked painful. I murmured to myself, sighing as I stared at the now empty doorway. At the same time, a bad feeling began to creep over me. And that feeling would soon be proven right.
Mom's going to need care. Her right leg seems to be in bad shape.
Jack said solemnly about a month after she first complained about her foot. I knew it. Somehow, I just had a feeling. According to Jack, her right leg had gradually lost mobility, and now she couldn't get around without crutches. Jack had started looking for a care facility for her, but since he couldn't find one that met her needs, he turned to me for help.
I can't find a facility for her, so I was hoping you could go to my mom's house and take care of her for now. Just until we find a place, okay?
Aren't you going to help care for her?
Well, you know how demanding my job is. I can't really help much with caregiving, so that's why I'm asking you. But I'll help out when I can.
Given how much Mary had harassed me as a daughter-in-law, I had my doubts. But I decided to commit to helping out until they found a facility, visiting her home frequently to care for her. Maybe this would be an opportunity for her to soften her attitude toward me. I had been holding on to a faint hope. But it didn't take long for me to realize just how wrong I was. The moment I stepped into Mary's house, she refused to even look at me and coldly said,
You're not my family, so don't come here.
Her words left me speechless. She truly despised me. I felt a heaviness settle in my chest. Still, I thought maybe she was just emotionally unstable since she had only recently started needing care. Forcing myself to shake off the unease, I focused on taking care of her and cleaning the house. Surely, over time, she would soften. But instead, her hostility escalated with each passing day.
Oh, you think I'm helpless and weak, don't you?
She would yell at me while I cleaned, sometimes even throwing a remote control or a newspaper in my direction. I endured it, hoping things would change, but her attitude remained the same. My stress reached its limit, so I finally decided to talk to Jack about it. But what he said was beyond anything I had expected.
Hey, don't stress Mom out more than she already is. If she's acting that way toward you, maybe you're the problem.
His words made my blood boil, and I snapped back. So you're saying this is my fault? I've adjusted my work schedule, made time, and have been taking care of your mother. And this is what I get in return. Jack looked startled for a second, but then he let out a mocking laugh.
Oh, come on. It's not like you actually have to adjust anything. You can make time whenever you want. Stop acting like you're doing something special.
Then, as if that was the end of the conversation, he walked off into his room. Frustrated, I called out to him, facing his closed door. Hey, you said you'd help with her care. You told me I'll do what I can. But you haven't done a damn thing, have you? You've just dumped everything on me. No matter how much I shouted, Jack never responded. I can't do this anymore. I muttered under my breath, knowing he wasn't listening anyway. Between Jack and his mother, I was completely drained. As time went on, I found myself avoiding Mary's house more and more. Every time I went, all I got were complaints and insults. I just couldn't keep doing this. Then, one night, Jack came home late as usual. But something was different. Standing beside him was Mary. She leaned on crutches, with Jack supporting her. "Mary?" My eyes widened in shock. Jack, clearly annoyed, looked at me and spoke in an irritated tone.
You're just gonna stop taking care of her, huh? You've been neglecting her, haven't you?
I took a deep breath and answered calmly. Neglecting her? She doesn't even want me to take care of her. And I reached my limit. I tried talking to you about it, but you didn't care. Before I could finish, Jack cut me off, raising his voice.
There are no available facilities, so Mom's going to live here. If you don't like it, then leave. A parentless woman like you doesn't even has a home to return to.
Mary seized the opportunity and added mockingly.
That's right, Catherine. You don't have parents, so you don't have a home to go back to, do you?
At that moment, something inside me snapped. The last bit of attachment I had left shattered completely. I took a deep breath and then spoke. All right, let's get a divorce. Both of them looked shocked, but I continued. And I'm going back to my family home.
What? Family home?
Jack muttered in disbelief, and Mary let out a scoff.
What are you even talking about? You don't have a family home.
But I calmly responded. I do. My brother has been taking care of it. Jack's expression twisted for a moment, and Mary was at a loss for words.
What do you mean?
Ignoring Jack, I quickly started packing my things. I wanted to get away from them as soon as possible. Once I had everything I needed, I left the house in silence. Jack and his mother were still shouting behind me, but I didn't care anymore. I walked away with a sense of relief. I headed to the house where I was born and lived until I was 5. It was the home my grandparents had protected ever since the day I lost my parents. Now that they had passed, Alex had taken over its management, but since his job required him to live elsewhere, the house was left vacant. Jack and Mary assumed I had nowhere to go, but in reality, I did. As I stepped inside, the familiar scent of wood brought back a flood of childhood memories. The peaceful times I spent with my parents, playing hide and seek with Alex. The house, filled with memories, welcomed me back as if embracing me. After unpacking, I spent several peaceful days there. Then one day, Jack called. I had been ignoring his calls, but he was so persistent that I finally gave in and answered. Hello.
Where the hell are you? Get back here now.
His angry voice pierced through the phone the moment I picked up. Calm down. You don't need to yell. I can hear you just fine.
I asked you where you are. You've been ignoring my calls.
I already told you. I went back to my family home. I replied in an exasperated tone. Jack, now clearly frustrated, raised his voice even more.
You keep saying that, but you don't have a home to go back to. Your parents are dead, and your grandparents passed away a long time ago.
Yes, my parents died when I was little, and my grandma has passed away too. But the house is still here, so I returned to it. That's all there is to it. Jack fell silent for a moment before speaking quietly.
I don't understand any of this. I need to talk to you in person. Tell me where you are.
We can talk over the phone. We're done. There's nothing left to discuss, and I don't see any reason to meet. I said that, but then I realized I still hadn't gotten him to sign the divorce papers. Sure, I could mail them, but it would be much more certain if I had him sign them in front of me and file them myself. As I was thinking about that, Jack suddenly pleaded in a tearful voice.
Please, let's talk one more time.
After hesitating, I finally decided to give him my address. The next day, Jack showed up at my family home, and I was shocked by his appearance. He looked completely exhausted, his face gaunt and his body frail. In just a few days, he had become almost unrecognizable.
You? What are you doing in a place like this? I thought you had no family home. Is this really your house?
Jack peered inside, looking around as if trying to make sense of it. After my grandparents passed, my brother took care of this house. You and Mary assumed I had nowhere to go, but I never once said that. I answered calmly. Jack was at a loss for words for a moment, but then frustration took over his face.
You were hiding this from me all along? I supported you because I thought you had no home, no family to rely on, and you just trampled all over my kindness.
A cold feeling settled deep in my chest. Supported me? I asked quietly, then continued, my voice rising. You never supported me. You looked down on me. You convinced yourself I had no home or family and wanted to keep me beneath you. You mocked my job every chance you got, and now you dare say you were supporting me? Jack stood frozen, his mouth slightly open, unable to respond. Eventually, he let out a deep sigh and softened his tone.
Look, don't get so worked up. Come back, okay? Mom needs care, and I can't handle everything on my own. And housework. I mean, you've always done it, and I can't keep up. I need you, Catherine.
Need me? I couldn't help but laugh. Why should I come back just to take care of your mother and clean up after you? What's in it for me? I want nothing to do with either of you anymore. Then, I pulled out the divorce papers. I've already filled out my part. Please sign here. Jack looked at the document and exploded with rage.
Are you kidding me? I worked hard for you. You left, and now both Mom and I are struggling because of it.
Oh, and when I was living with you, how did you treat me? You belittled me, threw insults my way, and let Mary torment me without lifting a finger to stop her. You never cared. So, what's the point of saying this now? I spoke with finality.
You. Just come back now. I will never agree to a divorce. You have a duty to take care of me and my mom. You should just do as I say.
Jack's face turned bright red as he yelled. Did he really think that raising his voice and trying to intimidate me would make me obey? I let out a sigh and calmly responded, If you keep making a scene, I'll call the police. And if you refuse to sign the divorce papers, I'll have a lawyer handle everything. While I'm at it, maybe I should also have them file a claim for emotional distress, considering all the mistreatment I endured from you and Mary.
There's no need to take things that far. The police? A lawyer? Are you serious?
If you sign the papers right now, I won't ask for compensation. When I said that, Jack clenched his jaw, his face twisting in frustration as he glared at the divorce papers. Then, in a fit of anger, he messily scribbled his signature and shoved the papers at me.
Here. This is what you wanted, right?
Yes, I'll file it soon. I smiled as I said that. And Jack clicked his tongue in frustration before storming out, stomping noisily as he went. After watching him leave, I wasted no time heading to submit the divorce papers. Once they were officially accepted, I let out a deep sigh of relief. And just like that, Jack and I were no longer husband and wife. We were strangers again. That evening, Alex came by to check on me. I had explained the situation to him via email beforehand, but when I gave him the full story, he laughed and patted me on the shoulder.
Good for you. You finally stood up for yourself. You're free now. Take this house and start living your life again.
I nodded firmly at his words. From this point on, I would move forward, no longer bound by my past. It was a moment of absolute certainty. Life at my family home turned out to be far more peaceful and comfortable than I had imagined. When I lived with Jack, I did housework out of obligation to meet his and his mother's unreasonable demands. But now, I could do it freely without anyone watching or criticizing me. Standing in the kitchen with my favorite music playing, I felt as if I were in a different world. The fridge was packed with fresh vegetables and fruit Alex had sent, and cooking with them was a joy like no other. At night, I developed a habit of reading by the moonlight streaming through the large living room windows. In the stillness, the only sound was the soft rustle of pages. I couldn't even remember the last time I had experienced such tranquil nights. As I embraced this life, the pain of my past began to feel like a distant memory. But that peace didn't last long. One day, Jack showed up at my family home again. My doorbell rang, and thinking it was a delivery, I opened the door only to find him standing there, looking even more haggard than before. His face was a mix of desperation and irritation. "What do you want? I told you not to show up unannounced. What's this about?" I asked Jack coldly, and he spat out his words.
It's the facility. Mom's care facility. I finally found a place that met all the requirements, but it turns out the owner is your brother.
What?
Because of him, we were rejected. I also found out you work for his company. You never told me that.
I was momentarily surprised, but quickly understood. Alex had started a caregiving business, and I worked there as an administrative staff member. Jack had never known, but now everything clicked. I hadn't yet heard about this incident from Alex, but knowing him, I could easily imagine him rejecting someone who had wronged his family. Alex knows everything I've told him about how you and Mary treated me. That's why he denied your application. He's always said he can't trust people who don't value their own family. Do you have a problem with that?
Of course I have a problem. If Alex hadn't meddled, Mom could have been admitted. And then, because I was upset, I got a little physical with one of the staff, and they overreacted, restrained me, and humiliated me. And now they're even demanding a settlement payment.
As Jack ranted in anger, I listened in disbelief. So, you resorted to violence against the facility staff? That's just disgusting. I can't believe you'd stoop that low.
It wasn't violence. I just grabbed their arm. They blew it way out of proportion.
Grabbing someone's arm is violence. If the staff are connected to Alex, you should consider yourself lucky to only be dealing with a settlement. In most cases, this would involve the police. Do you even understand that? Jack turned red, unable to say anything in return. What are you here for?
Let me talk to Alex. If I can't get Mom into a facility, I'm done for.
I stared at Jack for a moment before responding coldly. That's not happening. Alex has no intention of talking to you, and he won't approve her admission. Besides, I have no reason to help you either. Jack slumped at the front door, looking up at me with tear-filled eyes.
Please. I'm so exhausted. Do something. I can't take this anymore. It's too much for me.
For a brief moment, I felt a flicker of pity for him, but my resolve didn't waver. I have no reason to do anything for you. Now, can you leave? If you keep this up, I'll call the police for real this time. Jack looked at me with a pale face, but realizing I wouldn't back down, he silently stood up and shuffled away, dragging his feet. As I watched him walk off, I let out a deep sigh. This was the true end. All that was left was to move forward into a new future. I went back inside and opened the living room window. A clear breeze flowed into the room, and I felt like the weight that had been pressing on my heart had disappeared all at once. A few weeks later, I got a call from Alex.
Apparently, Jack has racked up a lot of debt.
It seemed he had been forced to come up with a large amount of money to get his mother admitted to another facility. Before the new facility was finalized, Mary had called Alex's facility herself, begging for reconsideration. However, she was told, "We do not accommodate requests from people who lack sincerity toward their family." This infuriated Mary, and her anger ended up being directed at Jack as well. Even after moving into the new facility, she spent her time complaining about everything. As for Jack, he had to sell their house to cover the debts and move into an old, low-rent apartment. With monthly repayments piling up and a low-paying job, his financial and emotional state had become dire. Gone were his arrogance and pride from before. Jack still calls me occasionally, though I never answer. So every time, a message is left on my voicemail. Most of them are just complaints like life is so hard, Mom does nothing but nag when I visit her, and I feel miserable at work. But all of that is his own doing. Feeling satisfied knowing the outcome of his choices, I decided to block his number. Of course, I also blocked Mary's number. Meanwhile, I've truly reclaimed my peace. With no more harassment from Jack or Mary, I've been able to spend time focusing on myself. While working, I've started slowly pursuing things I've always wanted to do. I've joined a cooking class and begun seriously learning sewing, a hobby I've always enjoyed. I'm even considering showcasing my handmade items at a local market. The joy of using my time for myself, after living a life dictated by others, is incomparable. One day, Alex came to visit me at the family home. We sat in the yard, sipping coffee and chatting.
I'm so glad you freed yourself from your husband and his mother. You're finally living your life,
Alex said with a laugh. His words warmed my heart, and I almost teared up, but instead, I smiled and nodded. Now, I can truly believe it. It's because of those difficult days that I can live this fulfilling, free life today. It's never too late to take back your life. I was finally moving forward toward my future.
Grandpa's going to be gone soon.
Mia, what's wrong all of a sudden? My daughter started whining in the car on the way back from celebrating my father-in-law's 60th birthday. The father-in-law we were just with is going to be gone? What does she mean? I tilted my head in confusion at Mia's strange and sudden words.
Grandpa's going to be gone.
As she said this, Mia burst into tears. I was surprised, but my husband was even more shocked.
What could it be? Has that woman already started moving?
Muttering this, he turned pale and made a sudden U-turn.
Is Dad going to be okay? I hope we're not too late.
With that, he rushed back to his parents' house. While driving, my husband asked Mia,
Mia, what is Grandma saying?
In response to my husband's question, Mia answered,
She said, protect Grandpa.
"What does that even mean?" And when we returned to my in-laws' house, we discovered something unbelievable. I'm Emma. I live with my husband, Scott, who works as a corporate employee, and our daughter Mia, who goes to kindergarten. Our daughter Mia has a mysterious ability. When we watch TV specials about ghost photos, while the studio is in an uproar saying, "It's a ghost," Mia calmly says,
No. This photo doesn't have any ghosts in it.
She dismisses it. But then she points to one of the show's guests and says,
This person has a scary lady clinging to her back.
When she said that, Scott and I both froze in fear. When we took Mia to visit my father-in-law, David, he was about to get into his car when Mia desperately stopped him.
Grandpa, wait. Don't go. You can't get into that car.
What's wrong, Mia? Why can't I?
Later, when we checked David's car, we discovered that the brakes weren't working. Thanks to Mia, David's life was saved. Hey, Mia, how do you know things like that? Curious, I asked Mia.
The grandma I've seen in photos tells me.
According to Mia, her grandmother, who had passed away before she was born, warned her about the danger. David had remarried 3 years ago to Anna, a woman much younger than him. Scott, my husband, chuckled and said,
Well, it's his life, so I don't really care. But Dad sure married a young one. She's even younger than me.
Although Scott and the rest of the family didn't openly criticize David's remarriage, everyone seemed a bit wary of Anna. Anna initially came into David's life as a helper to take care of him. When news of their marriage came out, people around them said things like, "The age gap is too big. She's just in it for the money," or "She's probably after his inheritance." But David reassured everyone, saying,
It's fine. Anna is distantly related to the executive director of my company. There's no way someone like that would do anything shady.
David trusted Anna because of her distant connection to his company's executive director. However, once Anna's name was on the marriage certificate, she began splurging on luxury items and going on trips alone, leaving David behind.
Well, David, I'm off. I've made your dinner, so just heat it up.
All right. Have a good time.
Anna seemed to be taking advantage of her wealthy, much older husband, doing whatever she pleased. When we saw Anna's possessions, we were stunned.
Anna, you bought another new designer bag? Didn't you just get one before?
Oh my, that's a high-end designer bag. That brand is incredibly expensive. And that coat, it's the latest collection from the same brand. Knowing how pricey those bags and clothes were, I couldn't believe Anna's reckless spending habits.
And she went on another trip without Dad. Is he really okay with all this?
Scott and I worried about David, but he laughed it off, saying,
She married an old guy like me. Anna is young, and she wants to dress nicely and visit lively places. We just don't have the same tastes. So I have to give her some freedom.
Even so,
Seeing Scott's concern, David continued,
Besides, Anna's cooking is amazing. So I let some things slide.
David knew all of this but didn't reproach Anna for her actions. Not long after, perhaps due to his age, David's health began to decline, and he started spending more time in bed. Scott and I visited him out of concern. David, you don't look too well. Have you been to the doctor?
A doctor? No, it's nothing serious.
Despite his declining health, Anna wouldn't take David to the hospital.
It's probably just a cold or something. It's not serious enough to go to the hospital.
But given David's age, it'd be safer to have him checked out at the hospital just to be sure. Even though we encouraged hospitalization, Anna kept pushing back.
Do you want him to be hospitalized? I'm taking care of him, so it's fine. Could you stay out of our family's business?
Because of Anna's attitude, Scott and I became increasingly worried about David and kept checking on him from time to time.
Hey, Dad, are you okay?
Scott and Emma, you came to see me. Getting old isn't fun. I've completely lost my strength.
David spoke weakly. His condition seemed to be worsening day by day. David looks like he's not doing well at all with home care. I'm worried about him. He seems to be getting weaker every time we see him.
Yeah, taking care of someone that's sick must be tough. But why won't Anna take him to the hospital? It's strange.
We couldn't understand why Anna refused to hospitalize David, despite how unwell he seemed, and our mistrust of her deepened. Around this time, a suspicious man started appearing near David's house. It seemed like the man was watching Anna.
Could it be? That guy is Anna's lover?
Noticing the suspicious man, Scott initially suspected he might be Anna's affair partner.
This seems fishy. I need to figure out who he is.
Later, Scott, concerned about David, apparently confronted the man directly. Scott, you actually talked to him? Are you sure that was safe? He could have been dangerous. Worried that Scott might have done something reckless, I voiced my concern. But Scott laughed and said,
Nah, that guy turned out to be nothing. Don't worry about it, Emma.
Scott reported that to me. Really? Well, okay then. Even though I was curious about the man's identity, Scott wouldn't say anything more.
I've got a business trip. I'll be out of town starting tomorrow for a bit.
One day, Scott suddenly announced a business trip. Another business trip? You've been having a lot of sudden trips lately.
Can't be helped. It's work, you know.
I started to feel that Scott's business trips had become unusually frequent. And he tells me the day before that he is going on a business trip. And then I remembered something. Come to think of it, Anna also said she'd be going on a trip tomorrow. I soon realized that the days Anna went on trips always coincided with Scott's supposed business trips. Scott, this can't be. Feeling uneasy, I secretly called Scott's company to check on the day of his trip. It turned out that Scott wasn't on a business trip. He had taken paid leave. Learning that Scott had lied to me was a shock. Scott, why would you lie to me and take paid leave? My mind began racing with possibilities. Could he be pretending to go on business trips while actually going on a secret vacation with Anna? Scott, where are you really going when you take leave? I started to suspect that Anna's true affair partner might actually be my husband. Anna is younger than Scott and me. Honestly, it wouldn't be surprising if something were going on between them. I didn't want to doubt my husband, but thinking about it made me uneasy. One day, we celebrated David's 60th birthday. Congratulations, David! How are you feeling?
Thank you. I'm feeling better than usual today.
As we were having this conversation, Scott and Anna came out of another room, both looking serious. Since I was already suspicious of their relationship, I couldn't help but wonder why they had been alone together. What's going on with you two? I asked jokingly. But Scott brushed it off, saying,
Oh, no, it's nothing at all.
He laughed awkwardly, which only made me more suspicious. Next to him, Anna looked annoyed. Could they have been arguing about something personal? Scott is acting so suspicious. Can he at least tell me what they were talking about? Still doubting the relationship between Scott and Anna, we spent the rest of the birthday celebration. As it got late, we left David's house. On the way home, Mia started fussing in the car.
No,
What's wrong, Mia? Why are you upset all of a sudden?
Grandpa's going to be gone soon.
Out of nowhere, Mia said this and began crying. What? Grandpa's going to be gone? I was shocked, but Scott was even more surprised.
Mia's predictions are usually right. Could it be? Has that woman already started moving?
Scott muttered this, his face pale, and made a sudden U-turn.
Is Dad going to be okay? I hope we're not too late.
He sped back toward David's house. While driving, Scott asked Mia,
Mia, what is Grandma saying?
Mia replied,
She says, protect Grandpa.
I hope David's okay. I hugged Mia tightly. Scott stopped the car a little before reaching David's house.
Sorry, can you both wait here for a bit?
He left Mia and me in the car and hurried into the house. But Scott didn't come back out for a long time. What's he doing in there? I waited for him while trying to comfort Mia. After a while, Scott finally came out of the house, holding a trash bag full of kitchen waste. Looking at the trash bag, I asked with a puzzled expression, What is that? Why are you carrying a bag of garbage? I couldn't help but ask Scott what he planned to do with it.
There's something I need to check.
With that, Scott started the car. How was David? Apparently, David had been home alone and was safe. That's a relief. I felt reassured. At the time, Anna wasn't home. When Scott returned to the house, David had apparently asked him curiously,
What's going on, Scott? Why did you rush back with that worried look? Did you forget something?
Seeing that David looked fine, Scott felt somewhat relieved. He then asked what had been on his mind.
Hey, Dad, where did Anna go?
Looking around the house, Scott asked,
Oh, Anna. She went out somewhere after the party. Why? Do you need her for something?
It turned out that Anna had left right after the birthday celebration to go out for the night. Scott saw this as an opportunity.
Great, that works out perfectly. Sorry, Dad, but I need to check on something.
Saying this, Scott hurried toward the back of the house. He went to the kitchen and started gathering the trash.
This area looks suspicious. What is this? Could this be what I think it is?
Muttering to himself, Scott continued his task. David, standing behind him, watched his son's strange actions with confusion.
Hey, Scott, what are you doing? Cleaning up for me?
David asked, wondering what Scott was up to.
Yeah, something like that. Don't worry about it.
Ignoring David's puzzled expression, Scott collected the trash and quickly left the house before Anna returned.
All right, Dad. Oh, and please don't tell Anna about this, okay? I don't want her to get upset.
Okay, if you say so. I don't really understand, but I'll keep quiet about it.
With that, he left David's house. So Anna went out somewhere right after we left? Where could she have gone at this hour? I said, and Scott nodded as he replied.
It worked out well that Anna wasn't home. There's something I really needed to look into. I'm taking this trash to my friend for analysis.
Apparently, Scott's friend worked at a private forensic lab. Scott headed straight to his friend's place.
Sorry, but I need you to analyze this as soon as possible. It's urgent.
Saying this, Scott handed the trash bag to his friend at the lab. I couldn't help but wonder what was going on. Why would Scott send something like that for analysis? What's going on? I want a proper explanation. But a few days later, when I heard the results of the analysis, I was stunned.
Emma, listen to this. The trash I collected from Dad's house contained poison.
Scott reported that toxic plants had been found in the garbage from David's house, and I was shocked. What? Toxic plants? Why would something like that be in the trash at David's house? A terrible feeling crept over me as I asked, trembling.
Just as I thought.
Scott nodded to himself. What do you mean? Did you already suspect something? Instead of explaining, Scott, with a serious expression, called someone on the phone.
Excuse me, I need to talk to you. Could you come to our house right away?
When the person Scott called showed up, I gasped. Oh, I've seen you before. The person Scott had summoned was the suspicious man who had been near David's house. What's going on? What's the connection between Scott and this man? When I asked, the man handed me his business card. I'm an investigator, he said. I was startled when I saw the card. An investigator? The man revealed that he worked as an investigator for an insurance company.
I found some things about Anna that seemed suspicious, so I decided to investigate.
According to the investigator, Anna had taken out a significant life insurance policy on David.
This isn't the first time. Anna has a history of taking out large insurance policies on her past husbands and collecting the payouts.
The investigator explained that Anna had been married several times before, always to wealthy men. Each of her spouses had met an untimely and suspicious end within a year of marriage. What do you mean by that? Hearing this, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me.
See? That woman is definitely suspicious.
The investigator revealed that Anna's previous spouses had exhibited similar symptoms. Their health gradually deteriorated, they weren't hospitalized, and they passed away under her care at home. That sounds exactly like what's happening to David now. Scott had been suspicious of Anna ever since the investigator had shared this information with him.
I knew Anna had a secret. I'm really worried about Dad. His symptoms are exactly like those of Anna's past husbands.
Despite his doubts about Anna, Scott didn't want to worry me and had kept it to himself. He made a decision.
I'll keep this from Emma until I've got all the facts. If I say something now, she'll just worry.
Scott decided to monitor Anna on his own. He then confessed to me.
You know how I've been taking all those sudden business trips lately? Actually, I was using those days to keep an eye on her.
Scott had been taking leave on the days of Anna's trips to follow her.
Whenever I found out Anna was going on a trip, I'd secretly take time off and follow her.
Hearing this, I finally understood everything. So that's what was going on. I honestly thought you were having an affair with Anna. I'm so sorry for doubting you. I apologize to Scott for doubting him.
Really? You suspected me of cheating?
Scott gave a wry smile when he realized I had doubted him.
Well, I guess I can't blame you. I was sneaking around and didn't talk to you about it. I just didn't think you'd suspect me.
Scott had taken time off from work to secretly follow Anna and find out who she was meeting and where.
Oh, there's a man coming out.
From the way the two interacted, it was clear they were lovers. Unaware that Scott was watching, the two started behaving affectionately right there.
The guy seems a lot older. Wait a minute. I've seen that face somewhere before.
Then Scott remembered. Anna's lover was none other than the managing director, the man David had trusted for years. Seeing the man's face, Scott was shocked.
That's the managing director who introduced Anna to Dad. What's going on? Weren't they supposed to be distant relatives?
Scott moved closer to eavesdrop on their conversation.
Anna, how's it going on your end?
Everything's going according to plan. That old man is getting weaker. But I think the insurance company might be suspicious of me. I need to handle this carefully.
I'm counting on you, Anna. If this plan works, you'll get a huge payout, and he'll get control of that old man's company.
Hearing this, Scott turned pale.
What the hell?
It became clear that Anna was targeting David for his life insurance. And the managing director was plotting to take over his company.
I told him I'm a distant relative of yours, so he doesn't suspect a thing. He's so clueless, having no idea we're both after him.
The story about them being distant relatives was a complete lie.
That woman. I won't let her get away with this.
Scott confronted Anna directly. And it happened to be on the day of David's 60th birthday celebration.
Hey, what's your relationship with the managing director? I know the truth, so you had better come clean.
However, Anna played dumb.
What are you talking about, Scott? I have no idea what you mean.
Despite Scott pressing her, Anna denied everything, claiming there was no evidence.
Honestly, stop saying weird things that make no sense.
She skillfully dodged Scott's accusations.
That woman. Even though I know her plan, she still has the nerve to deny it.
Scott and I decided it was too dangerous to leave David in Anna's care. We agreed to secretly take David to the hospital without telling her. Since Anna often went out on her own, we used one of those times to take David to the hospital. At first, David was resistant to the idea.
Why are you taking me to the hospital? Anna said she'd take care of me.
Come on, Dad. It's better to get a thorough checkup at the hospital. It'll give everyone peace of mind.
We reassured David and convinced him to go for a medical examination. The test results revealed toxic plant substances in David's body.
Just as I thought. That woman.
The toxic plant substance, while harmless in small amounts, could be fatal if consumed daily over time. As a result, David was admitted to the hospital. When Anna found out that we had taken David to the hospital without her permission, she lashed out at Scott.
What do you think you're doing? I've been taking care of him so diligently. Give him back to me.
That's not going to happen. There's no way I'm letting Dad go back home.
Scott firmly refused, causing Anna to explode in anger. Anna then did something shocking.
Listen to me, everyone. David's son and his wife are terrible people. They're trying to separate me from him to get his insurance money.
Anna spread lies around the neighborhood, claiming that we were the ones plotting to profit from David's insurance. She's really gone too far. Her baseless accusations left us at a loss. Meanwhile, David's health improved significantly during his hospital stay, and his complexion returned to normal.
You know, the hospital food might be healthy, but it doesn't taste great. I can't wait to go home and eat Anna's cooking again.
Hearing this, Scott and I exchanged worried glances.
Dad, we need to have an important conversation about Anna.
Reluctantly, Scott explained to David that Anna had been mixing toxic plants into his food. However, David became furious at Scott's words.
How dare you? Sure, people have said Anna married me for my inheritance because of our age gap, but I never expected my own son to say something like this.
But Dad, look at this.
Scott showed him the lab results confirming the presence of toxic plants in the trash from David's house. But instead of convincing David, it made him even angrier.
You're unbelievable. Did you fabricate this just to frame Anna? She's been taking care of me selflessly.
David trusted Anna so completely that he refused to believe the evidence, no matter how solid.
This is real. Please, Dad, believe me.
Scott pleaded desperately. At that moment, Mia said something unbelievable.
Grandpa, what Daddy is saying is true. Grandma in the photo says so too. Please don't be so angry.
With tears streaming down her face, Mia insisted that the grandma in the portrait was confirming Scott's claims.
What? My late wife.
Yes, Grandma says you should trust Daddy.
Since David was aware of Mia's unusual ability, her words calmed him down. Finally, David composed himself and carefully read the lab results Scott had shown him. After reviewing them, David apologized to Scott.
I'm sorry. You were only trying to protect me, and I was completely under Anna's spell. Thanks to you, I've woken up.
Do you understand now, Dad?
Realizing the gravity of his situation, David decided to take action immediately. He contacted the managing director.
Sorry for the sudden request, but I need to discuss something urgent with you. Could you come to the hospital?
David called the managing director, pretending it was about work, and asked him to come to his hospital. At the same time, Scott contacted Anna.
I'd like to discuss my dad's future care. Could you come to the hospital right away?
And so, Anna was summoned to the hospital. Unaware of what was happening, Anna and the managing director arrived at the hospital and met in David's room.
Why is Anna here?
The two were surprised to see each other, but quickly pretended not to know each other. Scott and I secretly observed their behavior. After leaving the hospital room, thinking no one was watching, Anna immediately acted.
This is perfect. Come over here for a moment.
Unaware that their plans had been exposed, the two moved to another room and began discussing their next steps.
Honestly, I can't believe his son and daughter-in-law forcibly took him to the hospital. That old man is so stubborn.
Feeling free to speak, Anna began to vent her frustration.
I was doing such a good job pretending to take care of him. I really hate dealing with stubborn old men.
Exactly. I had gone through all the trouble of using toxic plants to weaken him little by little, and now the hospital stay has completely undone it.
The two whispered conspiratorially.
How should we get rid of that old man?
It can't be helped. He will be discharged soon, so I'll start poisoning him again little by little.
They exchanged smiles as they laughed together. Unbeknownst to them, their conversation was being recorded. Got it. It worked perfectly. With the recording in hand, I rushed to the police. Soon after, Anna and the managing director were arrested on charges of attempted murder and insurance fraud. It turned out that Anna had tampered with David's car brakes in an earlier attempt to kill him. Anna, who ran a nail salon, had been struggling financially for years due to declining customers. On the other hand, the managing director had played the role of a loyal employee to David but had suffered losses from failed investments. He had collaborated with Anna, hoping to take over David's company. I felt ashamed for ever doubting my husband. I didn't know the full story, but I'm truly sorry. Since then, Mia said she no longer sees her late grandmother. It seems that as Mia grew older, her spiritual sensitivity gradually faded. Now, she's just a regular girl, no different from any other child. David, meanwhile, regained his health and became more active at work. Recently, he even started attending a gym for seniors. "I'm going to stay strong and healthy until Mia becomes an adult," he declared enthusiastically as he worked out.
Hey, Emma, I have a favor to ask. Anna turned out to be an awful woman, but she was a great cook. Could you come by occasionally and cook for me?
David's request led me to occasionally bring him home cooked meals. "Emma, your cooking is amazing. And I don't have to worry about any poison in it," he said happily while eating. It almost felt as though his late wife was smiling down at us.
Today is my daughter Claire's wedding day. I arrived at the venue, feeling excited, only to realize that my husband Jacob and his mother Margaret were nowhere to be found. There was less than an hour left before the ceremony. I started to worry, wondering if they had been held up somewhere. Instinctively, I called Jacob, but he didn't answer. Did something happen? I decided to call Margaret next. This wasn't the time to dwell on whether I liked her or not. But she didn't answer either. At that point, I was sure something was wrong. Ryan's relatives gradually gathered their things and made their way out of the waiting room together. I figured this was my last chance, so I called Jacob one more time. The phone rang and rang for what felt like forever, but finally he picked up. "Where are you? The ceremony is about to start." I raised my voice the moment he answered, but what I heard next was a smug, almost amused tone that I couldn't imagine coming from his usual self.
Sorry, I'm in Spain right now. Today's mom's birthday, remember? We took a little trip to celebrate. Oh, and I borrowed your car, so you'll need to cover the expenses.
Jacob and Margaret had ditched Claire's wedding to go to Spain. What could possibly be more important than Claire's wedding? How could you do this? My emotions took over, and I found myself shouting into my phone, not caring who saw me.
Think about mom's age. This might be her last chance to travel abroad. Honestly, even a domestic trip might be pushing it. I didn't have a choice.
His attempt to justify himself made me angrier than I had ever been before. Whether Margaret had pressured him into it or not didn't matter anymore. Then go ahead and enjoy Spain forever. My name is Emma.
All right then, Emma. I'm heading out first.
Okay, take care. I'll be leaving soon too. The front door shut with a thud as I saw my husband, Jacob, off. It was another typical morning in our house, the usual start to the day for our family of 3. Pretty soon, it would be time for our daughter, Claire, to head out as well. I wrapped up Claire's lunch and placed it neatly in a small tote bag.
All right, all set.
Here you go, your lunch.
Thanks, I'll write him off.
Be careful. Have a good day.
You too, Mom. See you later.
And then, I was the only one left at home. Compared to the two of them, my work starts a little later. I use that extra time to take care of some housework before heading out. That's my daily routine. Making lunch is part of that routine too. Once I finished up my morning chores, it was about time for me to leave as well. The moment my eyes landed on the calendar, I felt a wave of dread wash over me. I suddenly remembered that in just 1 week, Jacob's mother, Margaret, would be coming to visit. A sigh escaped my lips before I even realized it. To put it bluntly, my relationship with Margaret is downright terrible. It's not that I dislike her unilaterally. She's the one who dislikes me. The biggest reason? The fact that I didn't give birth to a son. Margaret desperately wanted a grandson to continue the family line, but the only child born was our daughter, Claire. She never got over it, and even now, more than 20 years after Claire was born, she still finds ways to bring it up whenever she can. Of course, with an attitude like that, she was never particularly kind to Claire either. Another frustrating thing is that Jacob still hasn't fully separated from his mother, and Margaret hasn't let go of him either, which is why she keeps visiting our home so often. Jacob is usually kind and easy to talk to, but when it comes to his mother, he treats her words as absolute. During those times, he refuses to compromise and even becomes cold toward Claire. Remembering that Margaret would be here soon was enough to put me in a gloomy mood first thing in the morning. I could already predict how she'd find new ways to make my life miserable. Letting out another heavy sigh, I grabbed my things and left the house. That night, however, as I was making dinner, an unexpected piece of good news came my way.
Mom, I need to talk to you.
What is it? You sound serious.
Actually, I'm getting married.
I knew she'd been seeing someone for a while, and I had met him before, but I never expected it to lead to marriage. Overwhelmed with joy, I stopped preparing dinner and wrapped Claire in a tight hug. Thinking that Claire was finally starting her own independent life filled me with a mix of emotions: pride, happiness, and a tinge of sadness all at once. But there was one thing I felt completely relieved about. She would finally be free from Margaret's influence. Remembering this morning's thoughts only made that feeling even stronger. Congratulations! That's amazing news!
Thanks, Mom.
Are you having a wedding?
Yeah, since he's Catholic, we're planning to have it at a church.
Oh, I see. A million questions started running through my head. When's the date? I need to request time off right away.
Mom, slow down. We haven't decided on that yet.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I just got a little carried away.
That's not like you, Mom.
Maybe not, but that's how happy I am. Let me know as soon as you set the date, okay?
Of course, I will.
And just like that, I had something new to look forward to in my life. Time passed, And finally, the wedding was just a day away. Because of work, Jacob would be heading straight to the venue from his business trip in Boston. It was my first sleepless night alone in decades. Everything should have been perfectly prepared, yet I kept worrying. Did I pack that? What if something was missing? All these little concerns kept piling up in my mind. More than anything, I was just too excited to sleep. I wouldn't get to see a flashy wedding gown, but knowing I'd get to admire a modest yet elegant and beautiful dress was more than enough to keep my excitement high. Alone in the dimly lit room, I found myself grinning as I imagined the big day. Then, the big day arrived. I put on my finest dress, the one I had inherited from my mother, and stepped out of the house with excitement and confidence. Just as Claire had mentioned before, I had arrived too early. When I got to the venue, only the staff, busy with preparations, were there, and neither Jacob nor Margaret had arrived yet. The groom's family hadn't arrived yet either. I figured this was a good opportunity to see Claire, so I decided to give her a call. "Good morning, Claire."
Good morning. What's up?
"I got here way too early, so I thought I'd come see you."
I told you you're always too early.
She laughed, then told me where she was.
Claire, you look beautiful.
"Why did you choose this dress?"
Isn't it elegant? I did want to wear a flashy, more revealing wedding dress, but I thought this modest and beautiful one was lovely too.
Yeah, it really is. When Jacob and I got married, we had a traditional ceremony. I wore a wedding dress. We stood before a minister to exchange vows, and then we cut into a big wedding cake together. That was a wonderful memory too, but a Catholic wedding was an entirely different experience. I had attended many weddings before, but this was something new for me as well. So, let me ask you again. What is it about Claire that made you fall for her?
Come on. That's kind of embarrassing.
Claire, her partner Ryan, and I sat together, casually talking about all sorts of little things. Before I knew it, quite a bit of time had passed, and I started noticing Ryan's relatives arriving one by one. It was about time to head to the waiting room and greet his family. All right, I should get going. Sorry for barging in.
No, it's fine. See you later.
With that, I made my way back to the family waiting area. This time, the room was filled with people. Since I was already familiar with most of them, we exchanged casual greetings and chatted about how I had already met the bride and groom. That's when I realized that Jacob and Margaret were still nowhere to be seen. There was less than an hour left before the ceremony. I started to worry, wondering if they had been held up somewhere. Instinctively, I called Jacob. But he didn't answer. Did something happen? I decided to call Margaret next. This wasn't the time to dwell on whether I liked her or not. But she didn't answer either. At that point, I was sure something was wrong. Those two were inseparable. If they were both missing, there had to be a reason. While I was caught up in all these thoughts, the staff came in and instructed the relatives to start heading to the venue. Ryan's family gathered their things and slowly made their way out of the waiting room. I followed along, but then stepped outside. I figured this was my last chance, so I called Jacob one more time. The phone rang and rang for what felt like forever, but finally, he picked up. "Where are you? The ceremony is about to start." I raised my voice the moment he answered, but what I heard next was a smug, almost amused tone that I couldn't imagine coming from his usual self.
Sorry, I'm in Spain right now. Today's Mom's birthday, remember? We took a little trip to celebrate. Oh, and I borrowed your car, so you'll need to cover the expenses.
Jacob and Margaret had ditched Claire's wedding to go to Spain. And on top of that, they were using my credit card. Panicked, I opened my handbag and checked my wallet. Sure enough, one of my cards was missing. I was so stunned, I couldn't even speak.
Didn't I tell you? Mom won a trip to Spain in a raffle.
And what difference does that make? If I had known the timing, I would have shut that idea down immediately. That's why Jacob didn't tell me. What could possibly be more important than Claire's wedding? How could you do this? My emotions took over, and I found myself shouting into my phone, not caring who saw me.
Think about Mom's age. This might be her last chance to travel abroad. Honestly, even a domestic trip might be pushing it. I didn't have a choice.
His attempt to justify himself made me angrier than I had ever been before. Whether Margaret had pressured him into it or not didn't matter anymore. Did you just say my card?
Yeah.
Then go ahead and enjoy Spain forever. With that, I hung up and immediately called another number. My goal, of course, was to cancel the card. I hurried back to the venue and quickly fed Ryan's relatives a lie. "I'm so sorry, but it seems Jacob and Margaret got stuck on the highway."
Oh dear, that sounds awful.
No one would ever guess they were actually in Spain. I hated that I had to make up such a ridiculous lie, but dwelling on it would only make me angrier, so I let it go. This wasn't something Claire needed to know right now. For better or worse, her wedding wasn't just a casual event. It was a sacred and solemn ceremony with no flashy moments or even a kiss at the altar. I wanted her to focus entirely on the beauty of the ceremony itself. With or without Jacob and Margaret, the wedding proceeded smoothly, and before I knew it, the ceremony was coming to an end. I figured it was about time to turn my phone back on, and the moment I did, I saw an overwhelming number of missed calls. As expected, they were all from Jacob. I sighed, completely unsurprised. The most recent call had been just 2 minutes ago. I knew it was only a matter of time before he called again, and sure enough, my phone rang almost immediately. Not wanting anyone to overhear such an embarrassing conversation, I stepped outside the venue before answering. "What do you want?"
What do I want? You canceled the car, didn't you?
I sure did. It's my card after all. I can do whatever I want with it.
I almost got arrested because of that.
That's not my problem. Besides, taking my card without permission is theft.
You've got to be kidding me.
No, you have got to be kidding me. Skipping Claire's wedding? Have you lost your mind? She's your daughter. Then, I heard a furious voice yelling on the other end of the line.
"Give me the phone."
Suddenly, the shouting was right in my ear.
"Do you even care if we starve to death?"
I already told Jacob. It's my card, so I can do whatever I want with it.
"You couldn't even give birth to a son. You should be dedicating yourself to me since I had one."
That was so absurd. It barely registered as words. The moment she said it, I regretted picking up the call at all.
"We still had 3 days left. Without the card, how are we supposed to buy souvenirs, let alone eat?"
And what does that have to do with me? Anyway, the ceremony is still going on, so I'm hanging up now. With that, I ended the call without giving them a chance to argue. 3 days after the wedding, as I was getting ready for work in the morning, the doorbell rang. Who could it be this early? I checked the monitor, and there stood Jacob. To my surprise, he had brought Margaret with him. At first, I considered just ignoring them, but I had to leave for work, and more importantly, I didn't want to cause a disturbance for the neighbors. So, reluctantly, I answered. The moment they stepped inside, they immediately started yelling and making a scene.
Hey, do you have any idea what you've done? We went through hell because of you.
"What on earth are you thinking? Thanks to you, I had the worst birthday ever."
You think I'm going to forgive you for this?
That's exactly what I should be saying. How could you possibly think a trip with Margaret was more important than Claire's wedding? I was too exhausted to even raise my voice. Instead, I responded in a calm but firm tone.
"How am I supposed to love Claire when she can't even carry on the family name? I don't care what happens to her."
Margaret, as always, spouted complete nonsense, as if she were in the right. She probably genuinely believed she was. Otherwise, there's no way she could say something so outrageous with such confidence. Either way, the one who suffered the most was Claire. It's bad enough that Margaret wasn't there, but even her own father didn't bother to see her in her wedding dress.
This is ridiculous. I couldn't even bring back souvenirs. That completely ruined my deal at work.
After ruining Claire's wedding, he still had the audacity to complain. In reality, it wasn't that big of an issue, but there was no need to mention that now. That deal won't be a problem.
What do you mean?
Jacob still wasn't done venting his anger and kept raising his voice for no reason. At this point, I couldn't even feel sorry for him anymore. Anyway, I have to get to work. You should come by later. We need to talk. Jacob must have sensed something because his face suddenly turned pale and he fell silent. Margaret, on the other hand, looked confused about what was going on and kept shrieking. I left the house a little later than usual, listening to her voice fade behind me.
Good morning, boss.
I've told you 100 times. Stop calling me that.
But it's the truth. Oh, Jacob isn't here yet.
Don't worry. He'll probably show up late again. Just send him to my office when he arrives.
Got it.
That's right. This is my company. Jacob works at the business I built. I walked into my office and set my things down. On my desk sat a completed divorce agreement. I had prepared it right after the disaster at the wedding. This wasn't just about expressing my intention to get a divorce. I also planned to fire Jacob from the company. As for the reason, he had probably figured it out from our conversation this morning. His work ethic had never been great. He was constantly late, frequently absent without notice, and I had to apologize to employees time and time again. I had always covered for him. Not just because he was my husband, but because, at home, he had been a kind and decent father. But now, that illusion had completely shattered. There was no longer any reason to protect him. As a company, I had no need for an employee like that. So today, I was going to make it official. After waiting for a while, I heard loud, hurried footsteps, and Jacob came rushing in. And just as expected, Margaret was right behind him. I let out a deep sigh without thinking. Why did you bring her here?
What do you mean, why? I still have plenty to say. And what's with this CEO's office? What kind of childish game are you playing?
Unlike Margaret, who was still fuming with anger, Jacob had completely gone pale.
So, what did you want to talk about?
Even his tone had changed. He had finally realized the position he was in, but it was far too late. And apparently, Margaret had no idea about my role in the company. Now, she was ranting about that. I truly thought, deep down, that she was an unbearably noisy and exhausting person. You mean Jacob never told you anything?
Told me what?
That I'm the CEO of the company he works for.
That's a lie. There's no way.
Then why don't we ask the employees? Let's see who they say the CEO is. I said this and turned my gaze toward Jacob. Realizing there was no way out, he finally spoke up, directing his words at Margaret.
Emma's telling the truth. She is the CEO here.
Margaret, clearly stunned, finally went quiet. Or rather, she was at a complete loss for words.
Is that true?
Now that she had no choice but to accept it, her shock was evident.
Why didn't you ever tell me? You always said Emma is useless and can't do anything.
I only said that to save face.
So Jacob wasn't just a nice husband after all. Behind the scenes, he had been belittling me to maintain his pride. And from the way he said it, this wasn't just a one-time thing. It was something he had been saying regularly. This was the first I had heard of it. Just when I thought my opinion of him couldn't sink any lower, it did. If you're finally ready to accept the truth, let me tell you everything. Let's see who the real useless one is. I then laid out every detail about Jacob's behavior at work. The constant tardiness, the unapproved absences, the frequent mistakes, and how I had been the one cleaning up his messes every time. Without exaggeration, without lies, just the plain truth. Jacob sat there in silence, listening. He didn't argue, because he knew better than anyone that everything I said was true. By the way, I do have a question. When you were skipping work or showing up late, what exactly were you doing? At this point, it didn't matter whether he thought he could get away with it or not. But I was still curious. Not that I didn't already have a good guess. Jacob sighed in resignation, then admitted it.
Gambling.
Just as I thought.
You've got to be kidding me.
Even Margaret seemed too drained to yell anymore. Well, it's a little late for regrets now. Do you know what this is? What I held up was a divorce agreement. I had covered for him countless times out of pity, but even that pity was gone now. It was time to end this. The moment Jacob saw the divorce papers, he took a few steps back and suddenly started apologizing.
I'm sorry. It was all my fault. I'll change, I swear. Please, just.
I let out another sigh. And what exactly are you apologizing for?
For everything.
Do you really think an apology can fix everything? Jacob fell silent. Of course, he had no answer. An apology wasn't going to change anything. At this point, nothing you say will mean anything to me. The only thing you can do now is sign your name on this paper.
Come on, Jacob is trying this hard. Can't you at least give him a chance?
Even after everything she had just heard, Margaret still insisted on defending Jacob. I have no idea how either of them can think this way, and at this point, I have no intention of trying to understand.
Hey, don't just stand there. Say something.
Margaret, be quiet. Before I realized it, my voice had risen. This is final. Nothing you do or say will change that. Even after that, Margaret wouldn't back down.
If you're divorcing him, then pay alimony. You couldn't even give him a son, so it's the least you owe.
Unbelievable. I'm sorry, But this divorce has nothing to do with this company. If you want to discuss it, you can do so through a lawyer. And if you continue causing a scene, I'll have security remove you.
Go ahead and try.
She really was beyond saving. I picked up the phone on my desk and called building security. Within minutes, 2 security guards entered the office and struggled to restrain Margaret as she thrashed and screamed. The entire time, Margaret kept yelling and even lashed out at the security guards, but eventually, they forcibly removed her from the office. Jacob quietly followed behind her without resistance. His back looked utterly defeated and pathetic. Sometime later, our divorce was finalized. Margaret continued trying to interfere at every opportunity, but thanks to my lawyer, we handled everything smoothly. As for Margaret's last-minute screaming about alimony before being taken away by security, the court ruled that neither Jacob nor Margaret was entitled to anything due to the emotional distress they had caused Claire and me. Through several discussions with my lawyer, I unexpectedly learned about Jacob's current situation. After the divorce, he resigned from his job, but has been struggling to find another one. Apparently, Margaret told him not to settle for anything beneath my company, which has made his job search nearly impossible. Because of that, he's been mentally worn down. On top of that, since Margaret's savings alone aren't enough to support both of them, they've been living in poverty. I apologized to my remaining employees for having shielded Jacob for so long. I had earned some resentment from a few employees over this, so I expected some backlash. But instead, they all offered me words of comfort.
It wasn't your fault, Emma.
Realizing how fortunate I was to have such good employees only strengthened my motivation to push the company forward. I silently swore to work even harder. After the divorce, I was left living alone in the same house. It had never been a particularly lively home, but still, living alone in a big house felt lonely. But my daily joy wasn't just my work. I also enjoyed visiting Claire, who had moved out after getting married. Fortunately, both she and Ryan always welcomed me warmly, so I took full advantage of that. A few weeks ago, a new life joined their family. And today, I used my day off to visit them. She's adorable. I couldn't help but stare in awe. There's a saying that you'd do anything for your grandchild, and now I finally understood what that meant.
You're a full-fledged grandma now.
I can't help it. She's just so cute. Claire didn't have many fond memories of her own grandmother. That made me even more determined to shower my granddaughter with all the love she deserved. By the way, she was a baby girl. Unlike a certain someone, it wasn't something that mattered in the slightest. She was absolutely adorable, and that was all that mattered.
All right, I'm going to get dinner ready. Can you watch her for a bit?
Of course. Honestly, I'd love to just take her home with me.
Yeah, let's not do that.
This must be what true happiness means. Once again, I realized just how precious it really is. Divorced, I, Emily, have a daughter, Sarah, who is a college student living a little far from me. Now that Sarah has turned 21 while in college, she decided to come back home so we could celebrate her birthday. That evening, my new husband and his son, Jake, along with the rest of the family, were all gathered.
Sarah, welcome back and happy birthday. Here, this is for you.
Jake had always been thoughtful towards Sarah. Every now and then, he would buy her cute clothes.
Are you sure?
Jake pulled a paper bag from somewhere and handed it to Sarah.
Open it.
With a nervous expression, Sarah carefully opened the bag. Inside was a stylish, boyish trench coat, exactly her taste. Sarah's face instantly lit up.
This is amazing. I love it. Thank you so much.
Seeing her reaction, Jake looked pleased. Even when Sarah returned to her apartment, she left wearing that coat. I guess the next time we see each other will be for Christmas and New Year's, right? You're coming home?
Yeah, that's the plan.
Then, as the holidays approached, I got a call from Sarah saying she was coming home. Since my husband, Michael, and Jake were both busy with year-end work, I decided to pick her up at the station by myself. She would surely be wearing that coat. Just thinking about it made me excited. Before long, Sarah appeared at the station exit, but she wasn't wearing the coat Jake had given her. Welcome back. What happened to that coat? It was totally your style, so I was sure you'd be wearing it. The moment I asked, Sarah's face turned pale.
Oh, that coat. You'll understand if you try it on.
What do you mean? My ex-husband, Ryan, never cared about our family. He adored our only daughter, Sarah, but he was even more obsessed with his job. I can't take this anymore. Let's get a divorce.
Emily, what about Sarah?
Of course, I'm taking custody of her. He was always too focused on work, barely coming home, spending every night at business dinners. And even when he did come home, he would bring colleagues and juniors over, expecting me to cook for them. To make things worse, he used up the money meant for the household on his endless business trips. I'd had enough of this chaos, and that's what led us to this conversation today.
I have a lot to say, but I guess it goes both ways. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. A new, challenging life was ahead of me, but for now, I felt at peace. Several years passed. Now, I was having dinner with Michael, a business associate from the company I worked for. I had been dating Michael for about a year, and he had met Sarah, now in elementary school, many times. They seemed to get along well, often laughing together, even without me around. He was a bit older than me, thoughtful, and above all, had a warm, charming smile. That night, we enjoyed our dinner, chatting about lighthearted things. Then suddenly, Michael's expression turned serious. Michael, is something wrong?
Emily, I need you to really listen to what I'm about to say.
His words and intense gaze made my heart race.
Will you marry me?
Just a few minutes ago, the mood had been completely different. The air around us turned silent, yet somehow it felt bright and warm. A second proposal, this time completely unexpected. I was momentarily stunned, but didn't hesitate to say yes. There was no round of applause in the restaurant, but I could feel the kind, knowing glances from the other diners, and that alone made me feel a little self-conscious.
Oh, thank God. I was so worried you might say no.
Come on, I was just a little surprised, but I'm really happy.
I'm relieved. Proposing never gets easier, does it?
Hey, no, it doesn't. I feel the same way. Just like I said, my heart was beating twice as fast as usual. Time passed, and the day finally came for us to live under the same roof.
Hello, my dad told me about you. I know him a little late, but from now on, I look forward to being part of the family.
Michael had a 20-year-old son, Jake. I had heard about him before, but since he traveled a lot for work, I hadn't had the chance to meet him until today. Unlike Michael, who had a gentle demeanor and an easygoing smile, Jake had a cool and distant aura, making him seem a bit hard to approach. But he was extremely polite and treated both me and Sarah with respect. Nice to meet you, Jake.
Nice to meet you too.
Sarah, right? You don't need to be so formal. Just relax.
I had worried that his reserved nature might make things awkward, but perhaps because of the age gap, I could tell he was trying to be considerate of Sarah. That put my biggest concern to rest. As for me, I hoped we could take our time getting closer as a family. But to do that, I needed to understand him better. I decided that when the time was right, I would ask Michael properly about Jake. That night, Sarah had school the next day, and Jake had a business trip, so they both went to bed early. Now, it was just Michael and me sitting in the dining room, drinking and discussing our future. Then, I suddenly thought of Jake and decided to ask Michael more about him. Jake is very polite and well-mannered. What was he like as a child?
He hasn't changed much since then. But
Michael hesitated for a moment before slowly opening his mouth.
actually, his mother passed away from an illness 3 years ago. It happened when he was at a difficult age, and he lost the one person who truly understood him. And well, Jake isn't my biological son. He's my stepson. So even now, we're still figuring out our relationship.
Hearing something I hadn't known before left me a little unsettled.
I'm sorry. I should have told you something this important earlier.
No, but in that case, we're in the same position, aren't we?
That's right. I need to face things properly too.
From now on, you have me. Let's work through this together.
Thank you.
It was definitely a heavy topic, but I felt relieved that we could share our concerns with each other. As time passed and we settled into our new family life, one thing continued to weigh on my mind. Jake and I had no common ground, and since he was always traveling, we barely had the chance to talk at all. At this rate, I had no way of truly understanding who he was as a person. On the other hand, his relationship with Sarah seemed to be going well. Every time he returned from a trip, he would bring her adorable clothes decorated with frills and ribbons. Sarah was always happy about it, which reassured me that my initial impression of him being hard to approach was just my imagination. At the same time, I often thought, I hope he doesn't feel like he has to go out of his way for her. Maybe he was just trying to be a good older brother. However, things changed when Sarah entered middle school. Hey, what happened to the clothes Jake gave you?
Well, they're a bit too cute for me now. You know, I started liking a more boyish style lately.
As soon as she entered middle school, Sarah's fashion preferences became more apparent. She had once happily worn the cute outfits Jake brought her, but now she avoided them completely. She was right. Lately, she wore pants more than skirts, and her overall style leaned more toward cool than cute. I felt bad about it, but fashion was a matter of personal taste. There was nothing anyone could do about that. But the one who took issue with this was Jake. I understood that it wasn't right to dismiss the thoughtful gifts he had spent his own money on. I felt the same way. But Jake was even more upset than I expected. Whenever he saw Sarah not wearing the clothes he had bought for her, he would scowl and demand, "What happened to the clothes I got you?" Sarah never knew how to answer, so I would step in, only for Jake to shoot me a cold, sharp glare. It was a look that clearly said, "I wasn't talking to you." Every time he looked at me like that, I felt a chill run down my spine. His eyes were dark, so dark I couldn't read what he was thinking. Sarah, too, was starting to find his persistent questioning annoying. She didn't show it too much, but it was clear that Jake was getting more persistent and more intense. Fortunately or unfortunately, because Jake was often away on business trips, these conflicts didn't happen too frequently. It seemed that Sarah had also learned how to avoid confrontation. Whenever Jake was around or about to return, she made a point of wearing the clothes he had bought for her as much as possible. Even so, every time he came back from a trip, he would walk through the door with his hands full of shopping bags, handing them to Sarah with a big smile. I had no idea what was driving him so strongly, and it left me deeply confused. So, I decided to ask him directly. "Hey, Jake, can I ask you something?"
What is it?
Whenever we talked like this, he would respond politely and properly, but I still couldn't forget those eyes of his. "Why do you keep buying Sarah so many clothes?"
Oh, that.
He sighed, as if it was a question he didn't really want to answer.
I just want her to wear them. And I'd like to get along with her, too.
Did he not realize that his actions were starting to have the opposite effect? I knew that bringing this up would likely upset him, so I swallowed my words. "You've already done plenty. You don't have to keep trying so hard for Sarah."
It's fine. I enjoy it.
It seemed like a subtle approach wouldn't work with him. "I see. Just don't push yourself too much, okay?" Time passed, and Sarah successfully entered high school. To mark the fresh start, she cut her long hair, which had once reached her chest, into a short bob. Sarah had always had a small face, and her new boyish haircut suited her perfectly. Wanting to show her off, I called Michael and Jake into the living room for the big reveal. Look, Sarah got a short haircut. Doesn't it suit her?"
Stop hyping me up so much. It's embarrassing.
But while I was happily celebrating, Jake suddenly exploded in rage.
Why? Why did you cut your hair? You're a girl. You should dress like one.
He stormed out of the living room. The sudden outburst left me, Sarah, and even Michael speechless. What was that? Sarah sat there, stunned, unable to respond.
I'm sorry. I've never seen Jake lose his temper like that before.
None of us understood what was going on. Michael, seeming to remember something, stood up and hurried after Jake. Meanwhile, I instinctively pulled Sarah into a hug. "I'm sure it's nothing. Don't worry. I'm here for you."
Mom, he kind of scares me.
I, too, couldn't understand Jake, and I couldn't find the words to reassure Sarah. The next day, Jake came home after work carrying something. Without saying a word, he handed it to Sarah.
What is this?
Sarah asked hesitantly.
A wig. Wear it whenever I'm around.
Inside the bag was a wig the same length as Sarah's hair had been until yesterday, just as Jake had said. I still didn't understand what was driving him, but it was clear he wanted Sarah to be cute and feminine. His obsession unsettled me deeply. From then on, Jake became even more controlling about Sarah's appearance. Concerned, Sarah and I decided to talk to Michael.
I'm sorry, but I don't understand either. Like I said before, I've never seen Jake act like this. Even when I asked him about it, he wouldn't say anything.
Sarah, have you thought about going to college out of state? If you live on your own, he won't be able to keep telling you what to do.
Yeah, maybe I should think about that. Don't worry about the money. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
In the end, Sarah spent all 3 years of high school dressing the way Jake wanted. As planned, she applied to an out-of-state college. She got accepted, marking the start of a new chapter in her life. At last, she had a chance to break free from this strange control. While in college, Sarah turned 21, and she decided to come home so we could celebrate. Of course, she wore the wig.
I'm home.
Welcome back. I still didn't understand why she had to do this every time, and my anxiety only grew. That evening, the whole family gathered.
Sarah, welcome back.
Yeah, I'm home.
If it weren't for his obsession with Sarah's appearance, Jake would just be a quiet, cool young man. Because she was still dressing to please him, their interactions seemed normal, but maybe that contrast was what made him so terrifying.
Happy birthday. Here, this is for you.
Thanks.
Once again, he pulled out a shopping bag from somewhere and handed it to Sarah. Michael and I exchanged glances. We already knew how this would play out, and just watching it felt exhausting. Sarah, now more mature, no longer showed obvious irritation. But there was something in her expression, like she was staring down a threat.
Go ahead, open it.
At this point, not obeying wasn't an option. With stiff, nervous hands, Sarah opened the bag. Inside was a sleek, boyish trench coat, exactly her style. Her face lit up instantly.
I always wanted you to wear what I liked, but I was wrong. So I picked this thinking you'd actually like it.
Yeah. It's amazing. I love it. Thank you.
Seeing her reaction, Jake smiled with genuine happiness. Watching them, I finally felt a sense of relief, but at the same time, memories of the past came flooding back. I felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders, knowing I no longer had to worry about strange things. It seemed Michael felt the same way as we exchanged small smiles. Sarah left for home wearing the coat. I guess the next time we see each other will be for Christmas and New Year's, right? You're coming back?
Yeah, that's the plan.
I'll drive you to the station.
Really? Thanks, Dad.
Sarah seemed to be in a great mood. This was the first time, as far as I knew, that she had called Michael Dad. Michael looked delighted and grinned as he started the car. There had been a lot of trouble with Jake, but things had finally settled down. For the first time, it truly felt like we had become a real family. As the holidays approached, I got a call from Sarah saying she was coming home. Since Michael and Jake were both busy with year-end work, I decided to pick her up at the station by myself. She would surely be wearing that coat. The last time she wore it at home, she had the wig on, so I hadn't been able to see her real haircut. But today, I would finally see her in that trench coat with her natural short hair. I was sure it would suit her perfectly. Just thinking about it made me excited. I arrived at the station and checked the time. right on schedule. Before long, Sarah came through the ticket gate, but she wasn't wearing the trench coat Jake had given her. "Welcome back. What happened to that coat? It's totally your style, so I figured you'd be wearing it," I asked out of simple curiosity. But the response I got was hesitant and uneasy.
"Oh, that coat. You'll understand if you try it on."
Sarah's face turned pale. "What do you mean?" She glanced at the back seat, making sure no one else was there, and then started explaining.
"That coat had a GPS tracker and a listening device hidden inside."
Her shocking confession left me speechless.
I couldn't believe it either.
"How? How did you find out?" I asked hesitantly, and Sarah slowly began recounting the story.
"Every time I wore that coat, I would almost always run into Jake. Doesn't that seem weird? I mean, I was going all the way to another state. At first he'd say, 'Oh, my business trip happened to be nearby,' and I believed him, but it happened way too often."
As I listened, my whole body started trembling with fear.
"So eventually, I got suspicious and checked the code. That's when I found a tiny device inside. Ever since then, I haven't worn it."
There was no doubt about it. Jake was the one who planted it. I felt more fear than anger, as if an icicle had stabbed me in the back. This was beyond disturbing. I had to tell Michael immediately. Even knowing he was at work, I dialed his number.
No way. Jake did that?
I told Michael everything Sarah had told me, word for word. He was clearly in shock, just as I had been. He couldn't even find the words to respond. I had hoped Michael, as his father, would be the one to handle the situation, but seeing him like this, I knew that wasn't going to happen. By this point, my fear had started to give way to anger. No matter what it took, I was going to make Jake pay for what he had done. I couldn't just let him get away with terrifying my daughter like this. With no other choice, I decided to contact someone I really didn't want to.
"What? Are you kidding me?"
As expected, the first person to react with immediate rage was Ryan. He had always doted on Sarah, and that clearly hadn't changed.
"I don't know what he was thinking, but I'm going to make sure he regrets ever messing with Sarah."
If we use the coat, we can probably lure him out. Meet me in front of the station at 7. We'll confront him there.
"Got it. I'll drop everything at work."
A little past 7 p.m. at the station. Just as planned, Jake showed up, completely unaware of who was waiting for him.
"Oh, Mom? What are you doing here?"
"I'm waiting for you."
You must be the one. Wait a minute. You look familiar. Jake, isn't it?
Huh? Before he could ask, "How do you know that?" Jake, in shock, opened his mouth.
"Vice President?"
"You know him?"
"Know him? He works for me. So you're the one who's been stalking Sarah?"
The veins on Ryan's forehead bulged with fury. "I've got proof right here. Now explain yourself."
No, sir. This has to be some kind of mistake.
Save it. I already know you've been following Sarah. Tell me everything.
Jake seemed to realize there was no way out, and after stumbling over his words, he finally started to talk.
A long time ago, there was this idol I loved, but she grew up, got married, had a kid. And then I met Sarah. She looked just like her.
For the first time, the mystery that had surrounded Jake's obsession was finally starting to make sense.
I wanted Sarah to stay just as cute as she was forever. That's why I kept buying her clothes. I just wanted her to wear them.
Now I understood why he had been so furious when Sarah cut her hair. If that had been all, maybe, just maybe, I could have let it go. But then, what about the GPS and the bug?
That's because Sarah moved away. I just wanted her to stay close.
And whose fault do you think that is? She left because you kept forcing things on her. You scared her away.
You've got to be kidding me. You put her through all this for such a ridiculous reason?
Ryan was beyond furious. Then suddenly, his tone changed, becoming eerily calm as he stepped closer to Jake.
By the way, this coat looks pretty expensive.
I didn't do it. I never used the company's expense account.
I tilted my head.
Oh, funny. No one said anything about company money disappearing. So that was you too, huh?
What do you mean?
Exactly what I said. Lately, there's been talk about someone stealing company funds, and it looks like we found our culprit.
From the way the conversation was going, it was clear that Jake had used stolen company money to buy the coat.
No, it wasn't me. You have no proof.
At this point, I was too exasperated to even respond.
Jake, you don't need to come to work anymore.
Just then, Michael, who had been listening from the shadows, stepped forward.
So, everything I just heard is true?
Dad, I would never do something like that. Please believe me.
I don't care about the money. What matters is whether you, Jake, were hurting my daughter, Sarah.
Hurting her? No. I just wanted to see her.
You're disowned.
No way.
And just like that, Jake lost both his family and his job in a single night. In the end, the accusations of embezzlement turned out to be true, and word quickly spread. Just as Ryan had said, Jake was fired and was even facing a lawsuit. The price of his foolish actions was steep. Later, when I talked to Sarah, she admitted that, for years, she had never been able to wear the fashion she truly liked. Worse still, Jake's obsessive behavior had made her develop a fear of men. As her mother, I regretted not realizing it sooner. I was overwhelmed with shame and frustration. But there was no point in dwelling on the past or regretting what had already happened. From now on, though it might be too late. I vowed to spoil her as much as I could and let her do what she truly loved. One day, Sarah came to me with an idea.
I want to go to a fashion school.
Maybe it was her way of rebelling against all the years Jake had controlled her. Or maybe, now that she was free of her fears, she finally felt ready to chase her own dreams. Either way, she had become much more vocal about what she wanted. I want to give her the chance to do what she couldn't before. With that in mind, I talked to Michael about it together with Sarah.
Please let me do this.
I'm asking too, please. Michael, perhaps feeling guilty himself, nodded immediately.
Of course. After everything, you should be able to do what makes you happy.
Really? That's amazing. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mom.
From that day on, it was like Sarah had become a completely different person. She threw herself into fashion, balancing her college coursework with intense study. Her passion was so inspiring. Even I found myself wondering if I should try something new. Now she boldly embraces the stylish, cool fashion she loves, enjoying her life to the fullest. Before long, Sarah successfully transferred to the fashion school she had been aiming for. She began expressing her individuality more than ever, staying true to her own path.
How about this? Isn't it cool?
Yeah, it looks great. Short hair and a boyish style really suit you best, Sarah.
Right. I have an amazing sense of style.
She truly shines when she talks about fashion.
Maybe you should help me with my wardrobe too. I always wear the same kind of clothes.
Of course. Let's go shopping together next time.
Wait, am I being left out?
Of course not, Mom. You're coming too.
Sometime after she transferred, I was surprised to hear that Sarah had a boyfriend. Hearing that he was someone who respected her individuality made me feel even more at ease. Michael teared up when he heard the news. I wondered how Ryan would react when he found out. Sarah had been through so much. That's why, from the bottom of my heart, I wished for her path ahead to be filled with happiness.
My eldest son, Chris, barged into my house with his wife, Amanda. The first thing out of his mouth was something shocking.
We're not going to take care of you in the future, so we're cutting ties.
And don't bother seeing the grandkid either. It's a nuisance.
As the two of them brazenly announced this, David, who was also there, was about to grab Chris in anger. But it was me who stopped him. When I heard they wanted to cut ties, I thought it was the perfect opportunity. Are you sure? Gladly. Chris and Amanda were taken aback. But then they seemed to decide I'd lost my mind, burst into laughter, and left. But I knew. It wouldn't be long before the two of them showed up at my door again. And sure enough, 6 months after that incident, my prediction came true. My name is Rachel, and I'm 65 years old. My husband, Tom, passed away at the age of 56, and I've been living on my own ever since. Until last year, I interacted with many people at the company I worked for. However, after leaving my job at 65, those opportunities have significantly decreased. At first, I was thrilled to enjoy some leisurely time during what used to be my work hours. But that didn't last, and I found myself wondering what to do. That's when a neighbor suggested I register with a senior employment center. After registering, I started taking contract jobs as an independent contractor and was dispatched to various workplaces. I now work 4 days a week from 9 a.m. to noon, cleaning the office of a small local business. I've been having a great time working alongside my colleagues every day. However, cleaning work is physically demanding. Even though the shifts are short, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't tiring. One day, while riding my bike to work despite feeling exhausted, I threw out my back. Ouch! I somehow managed to make it to my workplace, but the pain was so intense that I had to leave early. One of the employees at the company kindly offered to drive me home. While bedridden, I contacted a nearby chiropractor who advised me to first visit an orthopedic clinic a bit farther from home before coming to them. I guess I have no choice. I slowly sat up despite my pain and sent an email to my eldest son, Chris, and my younger son, David. I left my bike at the office, and I also need to update the Senior Employment Center about my situation. It'd be great if I could get to the clinic today. Both of them live in the neighboring town. There was a reason I decided to reach out to both of them. This was something I had been struggling with for a long time, and I saw it as my last chance to resolve it. I had been waiting for the right moment, and today seemed like the perfect time to make my move. I figured David and his wife, Emma, would be the first to respond. David and Emma visit me regularly and always show concern for my well-being. They even drive me to the store when I need groceries. Sometimes on their days off, I take them to a favorite restaurant that I used to visit often with Tom, as a way to express my gratitude. Even there, they always try to pay for the meal. Of course, I insist on treating them, but every time, they both look so apologetic. Still, the fact that this is the only way I can repay them for all their kindness makes me feel even more guilty. In contrast, Chris and his wife, Amanda, rarely visit unless they need something from me. Chris was originally the type to go along with others. Now that he's married, he completely conforms to Amanda's opinions. So, I had a good idea of who would respond first. Surprisingly, the first call came from Amanda. She must have heard about the situation from Chris and decided to contact me herself. Hello?
Hi. I just heard from Chris. You threw out your back and can't get to the clinic, right?
Yes, it's a bit of a tough situation. I'm sorry to bother you, but I wanted to reach out. Although Amanda had always been critical of me, I couldn't help but feel a tiny bit of hope from her tone this time. But, as expected, she was her usual self.
There's no way we can drive you. We're busy with the kid and everything else. This is such an inconvenience. So please stop involving us in these things.
I wasn't surprised, so I didn't take it personally. However, Amanda kept ranting on the phone, clearly annoyed that I had contacted her.
Before relying on others, why don't you figure out how to handle these things yourself?
I really didn't have any other choice this time. I seem to have upset you. Amanda only grew more passionate, continuing to lecture me. Since I was the one causing the inconvenience, I couldn't bring myself to argue back too strongly.
Of course. This is such a huge inconvenience. Why don't you just take a cab to the clinic?
I thought about that, but I figured I'd let Chris know first.
Well, Chris told me, and now I'm the one dealing with this. I'm out right now, so it's impossible. You need to figure this out on your own.
Oh, you're out. I'm sorry to bother you. Amanda is a stay-at-home mom, and I've heard that she often has lunch with her mom friends on weekdays. At a family gathering in the past, Amanda even bragged to Emma about how she regularly goes out to lunch and shares parenting tips. Today is probably one of those days. It was hard to tell if Amanda found my call annoying or if she was intentionally letting her mom friends overhear it, but she sounded more assertive than usual.
I'm not your servant, Rachel. And you've got Tom's inheritance, so your life should be comfortable enough, right?
The mention of Tom from Amanda left me feeling unsettled. I could even hear laughter from her mom friends in the background. At that point, I had reached my limit. I'm sorry, but if you're busy, that's fine. Honestly, you've never helped me with anything before, so I wasn't expecting much.
What's that supposed to mean? Are you being sarcastic?
Well, if that's how it came across, I guess I can't help it. I'm sorry if I upset you. You must be busy, so I'll let you go now. I wanted to end the call quickly, but Amanda wasn't finished.
Oh, I get it. You're upset because I brought up Tom. But seriously, Rachel, you're already getting Social Security, and now you're being so bold to ask for help? Are you that strapped for cash? By the way, how much are you getting from Social Security?
I found her questions exhausting, so I answered quickly. About $500 a month. Why does it matter? As soon as I mentioned the amount, Amanda burst out laughing on the phone.
$500? No wonder you're struggling. That's half of my monthly allowance.
Wait, are you saying Chris gives you $1,000 a month? I couldn't help but focus more on Amanda's allowance than my own finances. Chris works for a major corporation, but he's still just an office worker. $1,000 a month as an allowance seemed excessive to me.
Well, good luck getting by on your $500.
Amanda sounded a bit flustered when suddenly my doorbell rang. On the monitor, I saw Emma standing outside.
Rachel, are you okay?
Oh, looks like someone's there. I'll leave you to it then.
Amanda abruptly ended the call. I slowly got up and answered the intercom, asking Emma to let herself in with her spare key.
Sorry about that. I tried calling, but you were on another call, so I just came over since I was nearby. David called me while I was at work. How's your back doing?
I'm really sorry to ask, but if possible, could you take me to the clinic? By the way, what about your job?
I took the day off. David's on his way here now, so we can pick up your bike later.
Emma spoke with a warm smile. It's comforting to have someone to rely on in times like these. She lent me her shoulder and helped me into her car. She drove me to the orthopedic clinic, and after my appointment, David joined us. David went to my workplace, picked up my bike, and brought it back for me. I'll need to continue visiting the clinic for a while, but once my back improves, I'll manage on my own. I told them I wouldn't need rides anymore since both David and Emma work full-time, and I didn't want to inconvenience them further. Even so, the two of them have continued to visit me regularly and drive me to the clinic. Apparently, Emma even told her parents about my situation, and through her, they sent me some homemade dishes. I feel so grateful for their support and am determined to do something for them in return. After about a month of treatment, my symptoms improved, and I returned to work with reduced shifts. Today is my day off, and David and Emma are here at my house, relaxing and having coffee with me. That's because I was the one who invited them over. A neighbor had given me a tart as a souvenir from their trip, so I asked if they'd like to come by when they had some free time. They came over the day after I reached out. They were happy to see that I was recovering, and naturally, the conversation turned to Chris and Amanda.
Chris and Amanda are so selfish. They haven't checked in even once.
Well, let's not be too harsh. After all, it was my back that gave out.
You're too kind, Rachel. But Amanda is as self-centered as ever. She only thinks about what's convenient for them.
Before Chris got married, he used to visit home regularly, just like David. In fact, Chris was probably even more considerate than David back then. But after getting married, he became completely submissive to Amanda, and as a result, he's become almost estranged from the family. The breaking point came back when Tham was still alive. Amanda announced she was pregnant and then decided they needed to buy a house. That wasn't a problem in itself. However, Amanda suddenly called to tell us about it and said,
"Well then, we'll be coming over tomorrow, so please be ready."
She ended the call abruptly. The next day, Chris and Amanda did indeed show up.
We're planning to buy a high-rise condo near the station in the neighboring town, so we'd like help with the down payment. About $50,000 should do.
Tham and I were stunned. Amanda, however, looked completely unfazed.
What? The down payment?
I told you yesterday we're buying a condo.
Well, but you didn't mention anything about a down payment.
So you're not going to help us?
Amanda tried to corner Tham. Tham was a quiet and mild-mannered person, not one to argue. It was clear Amanda had contacted Tham instead of me, hoping to manipulate him into agreeing. Meanwhile, Chris stood silently beside Amanda, nodding in agreement. "Wait, I'm sorry, but we can't give you that money."
That's not fair. We want our child to grow up in the best environment. Do you want your grandchild to struggle?
We've already helped you with living expenses and rent before, haven't we? We can't give you any more money. In short, I was trying to tell them that we wouldn't be providing any more financial support. But Amanda, assuming we were out of money, said something outrageous.
Then Tom should just retire. With his retirement package, you could easily give us $50,000, right?
Tom, who rarely got angry, slammed the table hard. Amanda and Chris flinched. It was probably the fact that Amanda, laughing shamelessly, had not only made selfish demands, but also had the audacity to suggest quitting his job, that made it impossible for Tom to hold back his anger any longer.
Get out. We will never support you again.
But Amanda will be upset.
Don't make me angrier.
We're sorry for bothering you.
Amanda, realizing she had gone too far, quickly made her exit. In the end, Chris and Amanda gave up on buying the high-rise condo. However, it seems they hadn't given up on living in a high-rise condo near the station, as I heard they ended up purchasing a nearby property with some sort of complications. I don't know what made the property complicated, but if they're satisfied, that's all that matters. Later, Amanda bragged to me about how they managed to buy it for 1/6 of their original budget, and that they were now living in a high-rise condo. At that moment, I realized Amanda was the type of person who never reflects on her actions, no matter what anyone says. David and Emma knew about that story as well. That's precisely why they were so exasperated. Including everything that had happened in the past, this phone call made my decision clear. A week later, I invited David, Emma, and their 2 kids out for a meal. My recovery was thanks to their regular visits and support. When they arrived at my house and we were about to leave, Chris and Amanda showed up unannounced.
Are you heading out? We came by because we have something important to discuss.
David, Emma, and I were silent for a moment. However, the grandkids ended up telling them that we were going out for dinner.
Oh, I see. Then, we'll join you.
Then she shamelessly went ahead and said it. Wait, what about your kid?
My parents are watching them. Why does it matter?
You could have brought them along.
You've got to be kidding. We came to discuss something important. If you had told us your plans ahead of time, we could have brought them.
Frustrated with Amanda's attitude, Emma seemed unable to hold back any longer and approached her, trying to explain the reason.
Actually, tonight's dinner is.
What? Are you saying we're not allowed to join? It's unfair to take Emma and David but exclude us. That would be so mean to Amanda.
Emma, it's fine. I don't want anyone feeling left out. Let's all go.
As expected of you, Rachel. Oh, I'm starving.
Since the grandkids were present, I didn't want to make a scene. Reluctantly, we all headed to a nearby Italian restaurant together. At the restaurant, Chris and Amanda showed no consideration and ordered the most expensive dishes. Watching them silently eat their meals, I couldn't help but feel exasperated. When they finished eating, Emma took the kids outside. She was probably being considerate since the two of them mentioned they had something important to discuss. So, what's this important matter?
Well, there is something. But is David staying to listen?
Yeah, I might as well. I'm sure it's not going to be anything good.
Chris didn't like David's dismissive attitude and glared at him. However, considering that Chris and Amanda had invited themselves along, it was Chris being annoyed at David that felt out of place. David's right. You came unannounced and said you had something important to discuss. And frankly, the things we hear from you two are rarely ever good.
That's awful. How can you say such a thing?
Even I think it's awful, and I'm sitting here listening.
David, calm down a bit. Now, go ahead and tell us what this is about. David was barely managing to hold back his anger. Then, Chris and Amanda exchanged glances and started smirking. Then, what they said next was utterly shocking.
We're sorry, Rachel, but we've decided to cut ties with you.
What? Chris continued.
Amanda told me you're only getting $500 a month in Social Security, right?
And what of it?
Well, sorry, but we can't handle taking care of you in the future. So, we're cutting ties. We don't want to be treated like servants just because you're broke.
Chris laughed and pointed at me, declaring their decision to sever ties. Amanda, sitting beside him, was doubled over with laughter. David and I stared coldly at the two of them. I see.
It's sad, but this is for the best. Oh, and don't bother seeing our kid either. Cutting ties means cutting all connections.
David looked like he was about to grab Chris, but I stopped him. While this situation was unexpected, my mind was already made up. I couldn't help but let a small smile escape my lips.
Why are you laughing?
Well, cutting ties? Are you sure? Gladly.
What?
Chris and Amanda looked at me like I'd lost my mind as I spoke with a smile.
David, you should take Rachel to the hospital. She's clearly not okay.
Oh, we're already cutting ties, right?
David let out a heavy sigh. He had likely realized that it was completely hopeless.
Seriously, you two are unbelievable. Mom hasn't lost her mind at all.
What are you talking about? She's laughing while we're discussing cutting ties.
Listen, don't come crying to us later when you regret this.
David seemed to have a good idea of what I was thinking and looked thoroughly exasperated. Amanda, unhappy with his comment, began ranting at him.
Are you stupid? Why would we regret it? There's no way we could live while supporting a poor old woman getting just $500 a month. Cutting ties is definitely the smarter choice.
Amanda's right. There's no way you can live properly on $500 a month. We're not dealing with any more of this burden.
Hearing this, David was visibly furious.
Who do you think you are? You've never once helped out around the house. Especially after you got married, Chris, you completely changed.
Say whatever you want. Mom already agreed to cut ties, so it's all settled.
David, Chris is right. They've agreed to this, and I'm not expecting anything more. David looked at me with concern. Amanda, still laughing, added,
Well, good luck, David. It seems like Rachel's losing it little by little.
David slammed his hand on the table. Chris and Amanda flinched.
Don't you dare think about coming back here again. I'm a witness to this. If you're cutting ties, then leave now.
It was clear David didn't want to see them anymore. Amanda and Chris left without saying thank you. Once they were out of sight, David sighed deeply.
Are you really okay with this?
Yes, I feel relieved, but those two will definitely come back someday. We need to be ready for when that happens.
Well, I figured it would come to this eventually. Emma and I support your decision, Mom.
Thank you. I was surprised they were the ones to bring it up, though.
Yeah, same here.
And with that, the situation we had been bracing for finally began to unfold. 6 months after Chris and Amanda declared they were cutting ties, they showed up at my house looking furious. They kept ringing the doorbell repeatedly. Yes, who is it?
It's me, Amanda.
Oh, we don't have anyone by that name here.
Just open the door. If you don't, I'll keep ringing the bell.
Amanda, stomping her feet in frustration, looked pathetic on the camera. Watching her with a mix of pity and embarrassment was Chris.
Mom, open the door. We need to talk. Amanda's clearly upset. Don't you feel sorry for her?
I only have one son, and who might you be?
Stop being so childish. Quit being stubborn and just listen to us.
Chris started shouting through the intercom as well. Just as I was thinking this was getting nowhere, David, who was at home, stepped in to handle the situation.
Don't make a spectacle of yourselves out there. You're just giving the neighbors something to gossip about.
David? What are you doing here? It's the middle of a weekday. Don't you have work?
Chris seemed quite surprised to see David there. Or rather, he probably found David's presence inconvenient. It was obvious that they had come to push a conversation that suited their own agenda.
I'm on leave. You didn't seriously take time off work just to show up here for this nonsense. Did you?
Nonsense? Don't be ridiculous. I only came because Amanda insisted I come with her. And don't talk to your older brother like that.
I don't consider someone who causes this kind of embarrassment to be my brother.
What?
David glared at Chris through the intercom camera. Before the situation could escalate into a shouting match, Emma stepped in to calm things down.
If they keep causing a scene, it'll just bother the neighbors more. Why don't you hear them out? What do you think, Rachel?
Well, I have a pretty good idea of what this is about. But let's let them in.
Mom.
David looked at me, clearly angry. He clearly felt that there was no reason to let Chris and Amanda into the house after their declaration to sever ties. But I tried to convince him. David, I understand how you feel, but I'm sure this will be the last time. You know that, don't you? Emma suggested this because she believes it's the right thing to do.
David, just let it go.
Fine.
Reluctantly, David agreed, and we let the agitated Chris and Amanda into the house. When I invited Amanda into the living room, she boldly sat on the sofa and immediately blurted out something outrageous.
Rachel, you bought David's house, didn't you? You didn't even help us with a down payment. This is unbelievable.
Apparently, Amanda had heard through her mom friends that David and Emma had purchased a house. Although their kids live in a different town, they attend the same extracurricular activities as Amanda's child, which is how they share mutual acquaintances. This is likely why Amanda has been so hostile toward David and Emma. David and Emma's two children are charming and very popular among other parents. On top of that, they are excellent students with outstanding grades at their tutoring center. In contrast, Chris and Amanda's only child is hardworking but struggles to improve academically. This has led to Amanda being compared to David and Emma by her mom friends, which seems to put her in a very bad mood. Even during family gatherings, Amanda would intentionally raise her voice so her child could hear and say things like this.
Everyone's so cold to my child. Shouldn't families step up and defend them if others are talking behind their back?
If you're unhappy, maybe you should just leave. Your child looks uncomfortable. I thought it was completely unacceptable for her to take it out on the child, so I firmly called her out on it. After that, Amanda stopped bad-mouthing others at home. I later learned that the kids had apologized to each other because they had a good relationship despite their mother's behavior. It saddened me that Amanda couldn't see the good qualities in her own polite and well-mannered child. And now today, Amanda was here to complain that I had supposedly helped David and Emma buy a house. This was no surprise to me.
Rachel, I know you helped them, so you should help us too. How much did you give them?
Amanda demanded money from me, holding out her hand. Her audacity was so shocking that I wasn't even angry. I was just baffled. Let me make this clear. It wasn't help. Why would I need to help you?
A mom friend told me she saw you at the hardware store with David and Emma, picking out furniture. She even saw you paying at the register.
Well, your friend sounds just as rude as you are. How intrusive.
Excuse me. It's far more rude for you to favor one sibling over the other. We've been treated like nothing but an afterthought.
David and Emma exchanged bewildered glances. They were stunned by how relentlessly self-centered Amanda's comments were. I decided it was time to put an end to this nonsense. Of course, I helped. We're going to be living together.
Living together?
Yes, we're living together, so I contributed to the cost of their new home. Since it's going to be my house too, there's nothing wrong with me paying for it. Amanda didn't seem convinced by what I said. At that moment, David and Emma stepped in.
Honestly, I still feel like we should have paid a little more ourselves. I'm not entirely satisfied.
We're grateful. but having you cover the full amount feels like too much.
You two have done so much for me, and since I'll continue to rely on you, it's only fair. Hearing this, Amanda was stunned.
Wait, what do you mean? The full amount?
We bought it outright. About $500,000.
$500,000?
Hearing the amount from David, Amanda's jaw dropped.
How? On a fixed income from Social Security? That's impossible. Don't tell me you used Tom's inheritance.
Of course not. It was all my own money.
That's a lie. There's no way.
Amanda, thinking that someone like me living on $500 a month from Social Security couldn't possibly afford $500,000, looked at Chris for agreement. However, Chris turned pale as if he had suddenly remembered something. Seizing the moment, I pressed him. Chris, did you ever tell Amanda about my work?
Well, no.
Chris, what's going on? There's no way Rachel could have that kind of money, right?
Chris hesitated but slowly began explaining my work history to Amanda. As she listened, Amanda's face turned ashen.
Why didn't you tell me this earlier?
She raised her voice, demanding an explanation. In reality, the job I retired from was as a freelance sales representative. After graduating college, I worked at a major trading company, excelling in sales and achieving top results. That's where I met Tom, and after dating, we eventually got married. I chose to leave the company to focus on raising my children, but my former boss, who had supported me since I joined, asked if I could return to work, even for a short period. As a result, I continued working from home as an independent contractor. In that role, I achieved notable success, which led to a flood of lecture requests from various fields, allowing me to maintain an annual income in the 7 figures before leaving the job. I had saved a significant amount of money and decided to leave my job to enjoy a quiet life at home. Chris and David were fully aware of my work situation and income at that time. The only one completely unaware of this was Amanda.
That explains everything. I can't believe I'm only understanding this now.
Then what does the $500 a month mean?
It means I only spend $500 a month. The rest goes into savings.
What?
Amanda still seemed unable to process the situation. Chris had his face buried in his hands.
Mom's always been frugal. She only spends a fixed amount each month. If she ever went over, Dad or we would end up covering it and getting scolded for it.
Frugal? But what does that have to do with the Social Security thing?
I didn't tell you the whole story on purpose. Why would I disclose my finances to someone I can't trust? It was easier to just mention the amount I spend from Social Security. David sighed in exasperation, clearly fed up. Amanda sat there with her mouth agape, completely dumbfounded. Why should I share financial details with someone I can't trust?
That's why I told you you'd regret this. Cutting ties without understanding anything. It's ridiculous. Chris, you should have known better.
Amanda said it had to be true, so I believed her.
It was something he should have been able to figure out if he'd thought about it calmly. Chris had forgotten what kind of person I am, and as a result, he made a grave mistake. After fully understanding the situation, Amanda looked me in the eye and smiled.
Rachel, you're incredible. You should have told me this earlier. In that case, the house you bought should be for us to live in, right?
Everyone, including Chris, was stunned by what Amanda said. What?
That would solve everything. Honestly, Rachel, it makes way more sense for you to stay in this house. And David and Emma both work full-time, so they can afford their own house, right? They even said earlier that they wanted to contribute.
It was hard to believe such a statement was coming from someone who had declared they were cutting ties just 6 months ago. Everyone was stunned. Even Chris looked visibly taken aback.
That's not going to happen. Besides, we already agreed to cut ties.
That was just talk. We can take it back. So, when's the move-in date?
Hold on, that's not something we can just take back.
What?
I slammed a prepared document onto the table in front of Chris and Amanda. Both of them picked it up, and their faces turned pale. It was a loan agreement detailing all the financial support I had provided to them over the years. Don't tell me you forgot. When I provided that support, you promised Tom that you wouldn't take the money for granted. He insisted that we document everything properly before offering any help.
Wait, was it really that much money?
There must be some mistake, right?
Amanda, who had been boasting so confidently, was now trembling and speaking in a small voice. And no wonder, the amount easily exceeded 6 figures. Do you not even know how much support you've received? And do you know where that money came from?
Well, it must have come from Tom's money.
All of it was my money. Tom lost everything to gambling. The reason I became so strict about finances was because of Tom's mistakes. Shortly after we got married, I discovered that Tom had debts. Even after paying off all the debts and promising never to gamble again, Tom secretly started gambling once more, which is why we kept our finances separate. That's why Tom was so angry when Amanda suggested he retire. It wasn't just because she was trying to dictate his decisions, but also because he had a reason he simply couldn't quit, even if he wanted to. Tom's company allowed him to borrow money from the company through a system of repayment from his salary. And Tom had borrowed money to the maximum limit for his gambling. But even that wasn't enough, and he ended up taking on personal debts. The existence of these debts only came to light after Tom passed away. When I discovered them, I had to scramble to use Tom's retirement payout to settle the debts. While I managed to pay everything off, there was barely anything left afterward. So, there isn't a penny of inheritance from Tom. Sorry to disappoint you.
That can't be.
Amanda was crushed by despair. I decided to press further. You've been getting $1,000 a month as an allowance, so shouldn't you have plenty of room in your budget?
That's not true.
$1,000 allowance? What's this about?
Chris looked confused, as if he was hearing this for the first time. Amanda's eyes darted nervously.
No, Rachel must be misunderstanding something. I don't get that kind of allowance. You know that, don't you?
Didn't you just brag about spending $50 on lunch with your mom friends the other day?
When Emma pushed back, Amanda became even more flustered. Chris, as if something had dawned on him, shot Amanda a cold glare.
Wait, could it be the tutoring fees?
Amanda froze, unable to respond.
Every month, I give you $300, right? And the other $700 or so. That's for those extra options you mentioned for tutoring, isn't it?
Well, yes, but it's not an allowance.
What exactly are these extra options for tutoring?
Don't poke your nose where it doesn't belong.
Flustered by Emma's question, Amanda raised her voice. Chris, startled, turned to Emma and began speaking.
Emma, your kids go to the same tutoring center. Do you know anything about these optional plans that cost $700 a month?
No, there's nothing like that. The tuition is $100 per child per month, and there's an annual materials fee of $300. That's it. There aren't any other recurring costs. Are they doing other extracurricular activities?
No, they're not.
Amanda looked down, avoiding everyone's gaze. Chris glared at her.
I trusted you. But this has been going on for 10 years, hasn't it?
Well, I just wanted to spend it on education.
Chris, since you're starting to wake up, let me point something out. Compare your appearance to Amanda's. Amanda was dressed head to toe in high-end designer brands. In contrast, Chris wore simple, no-name clothing. Even his bag was an old one I recognized from years ago. It was clear at a glance that Chris hadn't been spending much on himself. Chris has always been the type to lose sight of everything when he becomes devoted to someone. I had seen Chris make mistakes and shed tears countless times. That's why both David and I were worried about him from the very beginning of his marriage. It seemed Chris had finally come to his senses, as he apologized on the spot.
I'm truly sorry for everything up until now. I'll go over the money we owe and discuss it with my family.
Wait, Chris!
We're leaving.
Amanda, unable to argue, followed Chris out the door. If Chris hadn't come to his senses, I was prepared to cut ties with him for good. However, seeing him finally wake up, it turned out to be a reassuring outcome as a parent. After returning home, Chris sold all of Amanda's luxury brand items. It turned out that Amanda had been lying, claiming the money was for their child's tuition, and using the allowance Chris gave her as personal spending money. Even after selling everything, the money barely covered a tenth of what they owed. Chris came to the house to personally deliver the money and promised to pay the rest in full. Since Amanda wasn't with him, I asked where she was.
She went back to her parents' house. When I told her parents the truth, they were furious. Divorce was brought up, but they begged me to stay married until the child is grown.
I see.
and her parents covered the entire debt for now. Amanda is supposed to pay them back while working. They said they'd send the payments to your account, so please give me the details later.
Understood. Chris apologized again.
Mom, David, and Emma, I'm deeply sorry for everything up until now. I know apologizing won't make up for what I've done, but for the sake of my child, I'm begging you, please revoke the decision to cut ties with me. I know it's selfish to ask, but I'm pleading with you.
David was relieved.
If you've truly woken up, then fine. Honestly, it was all just a matter of apologizing.
Just say you're happy about it. Rachel, you're okay with this, right?
Yes, of course. With that, smiles returned to our home, and peace was restored. Now I'm at Tom's grave, sharing everything that has happened. I came to report to Tom about the move and about Chris, whom he had worried about until the very end. I've moved in with David and his family. I was planning to sell the old house, but I decided to pass it on to Chris instead. Both Chris and my grandchild are very happy about it. Chris has since moved in and is enjoying life with his family. The old house is in the same school district, so the grandchildren now attend the same elementary school. They've grown even closer and often visit each other's homes to play together. I also received a report from Amanda's parents. Amanda is diligently working to pay back the debt. Her parents initially thought she was genuinely remorseful. However, after visiting their grandchild, Amanda didn't ask anything about her child. Instead, she kept asking if Chris still cared about her. When they questioned why she didn't show concern for her child, Amanda seemed indifferent. To make matters worse, she even said that when she and Chris reconcile, she plans to leave the child with her parents. Naturally, her parents scolded her and declared that once the debt is repaid, they would disown her and kick her out of their home. Though Amanda is now pretending to care about her child, it's too late. However, it's clear that Amanda still has lingering feelings for Chris, so her parents have decided to monitor her closely to ensure no harm comes to him. As for the grandchild, he apparently don't care about not seeing Amanda. In fact, he even said he doesn't want to see her at all. He felt better now that Amanda, who had been embarrassing him, was gone. Smiles have returned, and the grandchild is happily spending every day with Chris. Still, I know that anything could happen. That's why I vowed at Tom's grave to leave behind everything I can for my children and their families while I'm still alive.